Chapter 353. A towering city stood in the boundless border wasteland. The dark brown city walls were thick and heavy with the vicissitudes of time. It was as if a giant beast was crawling on the wilderness and had not changed for countless years. Standing in front of this ancient city, Chu Mu was shocked from the bottom of his heart. This kind of majestic aura was an impact on his vision and heart. This was Chu Mu's first time in the wilderness. While cultivating, Chu Mu did some calculations. He had been guarding the mining area for half a year. Now, more than 3 months had passed. In another 2 months, he would leave here and return to the Sword Mansion. There were a total of 20 ancient Tianhuang elixirs. According to the current situation, these 20 ancient Tianhuang elixirs were not enough for him to complete the tempering of the Tianhuang sword body. Once he lacked the assistance of the Tianhuang elixirs, it would be extremely difficult to cultivate the Tianhuang sword body. Chu Mu had tried before when he tried to cultivate. Without the assistance of the Tianhuang elixirs, he could only absorb the desolate qi in the air. The desolate qi was originally very thin, mixed and impure. The cultivation efficiency was extremely low. Once he left here and returned to the Sword Mansion, the desolate qi would be even thinner. By then, he did not know when he would be able to cultivate the Tianhuang sword body. He had to solve this difficult situation. Chu Mu thought of the wilderness. In the wilderness, swordsmen would often enter the Tianhuang mountain range to search for Tianhuang roots and other spiritual herbs that contained desolate qi. They would bring them back to the wilderness to sell. These spiritual herbs were all refined into elixirs. Chu Mu had obtained quite a number of Tianhuang root. This time, he planned to come to the wilderness to find an alchemist to refine them into Tianhuang elixirs. Even if they could not be compared to the ancient Tianhuang elixirs, it was better than nothing. At the same time, he could also stroll around the wilderness and experience the charm of the largest city in the dynasty. Withdrawing his gaze, Chu Mu's heart recovered its calmness. With a trace of a pilgrimage mentality, he strode into the city gate of the border city. There were 4 sword guards at the city gate. They were clad in full armor and had long swords at their waist. They exuded an aura of iron and blood. It was clear that they were elites who had gone through hundreds of battles. Moreover, they were all in the qi transformation realm. At a glance, Chu Mu could tell that the sword qi cultivation of these 4 sword guards had reached the peak of the initial success stage of qi transforming realm. Using peak swordsmen at the initial success stage of qi transforming realm to guard the city gate was a testament to the strength of the border city. The streets of border city were paved with dark brown square stones. They were about 10 zhang wide, and there was an endless stream of people and carriages. There were many shops on both sides of the street, and it looked very lively and prosperous. There were so many people coming and going that for a moment, Chu Mu felt as if he had walked into a market. However, most of the people walking on the street had long swords at their waists or carried swords on their back. It was clear that most of the people in Border City were swordsmen. There were relatively few ordinary people. In a city like this, with so many swordsmen, it was bound to be very chaotic. In order to govern a city like this, one needed not only extraordinary skills, but also enough power to suppress it. Otherwise, it would have been rioting long ago. The world of swordsmen had always been one where the strong preyed on the weak. Little brother, give me a desolate border chronicle. Chu Mu was standing on the side and reading carefully when he suddenly heard a shout. Turning his head, he saw a skinny man waving at Chu Mu a dozen meters away and quickly walking over. He had a square basket hanging in front of him. There were some books inside. Border Chronicle? Chu Mu was slightly startled. This flash of expression was immediately caught by the man. Little brother, this is your first time in Border City, right? You definitely don't know much about Border City. The skinny man immediately said with a smile of exultation, "It doesn't matter. As long as you buy a border chronicle, you will know everything clearly." The border chronicle here is written by my ancestors and passed down through generations. It is the work of many generations of painstaking effort. Everything about Border City is recorded in it. It is very detailed. With a book in hand, you will never have to worry about traveling to Border City. Like an advertisement, the skinny man took out a book from the basket in front of his chest and waved it around. How much silver? Chumu's heart was moved, and he asked indifferently. 10 taels, only 10 taels of silver. No, only 9 taels and 8 taels, only 9 taels and 8 taels. You can get a copy of the Border Chronicle passed down by my ancestors. Only 9 taels and 8 taels, you are worth it. The skinny man skillfully advertised while placing the book in front of Chumu. 10 taels, no need for change. Chumu took out 10 taels of silver and handed it over to the skinny man. Thank you, little brother. You will not be disappointed. I hope you have a good time in Border City. The skinny man beamed with joy while holding the 10 taels of silver. While talking, he left to find the next buyer. The book was not thick, only about 30 to 40 pages. The dark yellow cover had the words Border Chronicle written on it. After opening it, one could smell a faint ink fragrance. Obviously, it was a new copy. The first page was a table of contents. It talked about the origin of Border City, the few big powers in Border City, powerful warriors in Border City, evil people in Border City, and so on. It seemed to be divided very clearly. Although it was a handwritten copy, the person who copied it obviously practiced his writing. Although the words did not look special, they were regular, square, and round, making it easy to understand. After reading the table of contents, Chumu felt that the 10 taels of silver was worth it. To a poor family, 10 taels of silver was a fortune. To Chumu, it did not have much value. However, Chumu was not an extravagant person. Originally, when he came to Border City, Chumu had planned to ask around. He wanted to know what he should do first. Now that he had this Border Chronicle, he only needed to look through it. Flipping it open, Chumu practically skimmed through a few lines. He had a highly retentive memory, and each page only had 10 to 20 lines. Therefore, in less than 15 minutes, Chumu finished reading the entire desolate Border Chronicle and memorized it in his mind. Putting the book into the mid-grade space bracelet on his left wrist, Chumu recalled the contents of the Border Chronicle and immediately had a goal. Walking on the street, Chumu was not in a hurry. Although he needed time, since he came to Border City, it would be a pity if he did not take a look. It should be known that the cultivation of a sword master was not only about the cultivation of sword arts, but also the cultivation of the heart. Every action in daily life could be seen as a kind of cultivation. According to the Border Chronicle, Border City was built 1800 years ago. At that time, it was just a village called Jiang Family Village. At that time, it was because the Dark Eagle dynasty wanted to invade the Great Kuan dynasty, and the two dynasties started a war that lasted more than 10 years. The Great Kuan dynasty used Jiang Family Village as a supply point to transport resources, which allowed Jiang Family Village to expand and develop rapidly. Because the war affected too many people and lasted for a long time, the civilian swordsmen of the two dynasties also joined the war. Jiang Family Village was a village where everyone practiced the sword, so they naturally joined the war as well. The village chief of Jiang Family Village was highly respected, and his cultivation was profound. During the war, he killed many powerful swordsmen of the Dark Eagle dynasty and made a great contribution. The war that lasted for more than 10 years finally ended with the victory of the Great Kuan dynasty, and the Dark Eagle dynasty suffered heavy losses and retreated. The Great Kuan dynasty celebrated, and the Great Kuan Emperor also rewarded those who made great contributions. At that time, the village chief of Jiang Family Village, Jiang Yi, made great contributions and was conferred the title of Border King. The borderlands were under his jurisdiction, and he was also rewarded with a large amount of resources. Jiang Yi took this opportunity to expand Jiang Family Village into Jiang Family Town, and he built a city in a short period of time. He worked hard to govern the city, and the border city continued to expand. In the end, it became the largest city in the Great Kuan Dynasty other than the King City, and it was known as the second city of the Great Kuan Dynasty. Because of the increase in Jiang Ye's strength, he received the title of Sword of Gojoseon and the title of Border Sword of Gojoseon. His reputation expanded again, and the great Kuan Emperor bestowed him the title of Border King. It even made Border City under the jurisdiction of the Great Kuan Dynasty in name, but in reality it had its own laws. It was like one dynasty, two systems. Fortunately, Jiang Yi wasn't someone who was obsessed with fame and fortune. His pursuit was the way of the sword, and thus, he set down an ancestral rule. Border City could have its own laws, but in front of the greater benefits of the dynasty, they had to give up their own benefits, and they couldn't be independent or betray the Great Kuan Dynasty. It was also because of the ancestral rule left behind by the Sword of Gojoseon that Border City was under the jurisdiction of the Great Kuan Dynasty's royal family for generations. This wasn't a secret, and it was even the content that Jiang Yi requested to be made public. He wanted to use everyone in the world to supervise the descendants of the Jiang family and prevent unfilial descendants from violating the ancestral rule. Thus, Chu Mu was able to read these contents in the Border Chronicles that could be bought with 10 tales of patterns, and understand the whole story. As for the specific content, he didn't know. After all, it had been more than 1,000 years. Multitasking, Chu Mu looked at the shops on the left and right while recalling the contents of the Border Chronicles. He continued to move forward in the crowd. At this moment, there were shouts and sword chi ripples in front of him, as if there were people fighting. Walking along the crowd, Chu Mu saw two swordsmen with their swords drawn against each other, as if they had a great hatred for each other. Who dares to start a fight in the city, arrest them all, and kill anyone who resists. At this moment, a loud shout sounded, filled with an iron-blooded murderous aura, and a tyrannical power rolled towards them. Spread out, it's the blood-iron swordsman. Immediately, someone shouted and retreated. Chu Mu noticed that their expressions changed drastically. The two swordsmen who had their swords drawn against each other also changed their expressions. They hurriedly put away their swords and ran into the crowd, trying to escape. But the moment they drew their swords, they were already targeted. The blood-iron swordsmen of the Border City would not allow them to escape. A few figures flashed, and the two swordsmen who were trying to escape were immediately caught. They were punched into the shape of shrimps and thrown in front of a swordsman who was striding towards them. This swordsman was tall and muscular, wearing a dark red general's armor and carrying a sword at his waist. His skin was dark, and his eyes were like lightning flashing. The aura around him was extremely sharp and terrifying, and there was a strong evil aura surrounding him. Chi High Realm. Chu Mu was secretly surprised. The general's eyes swept across the crowd like lightning, and no one dared to look at him directly. Finally, his gaze landed on the two Chi Transformation Realm warriors who were kneeling in front of him, causing them to shiver and their hair to stand on end. "Take them away!" The swordsman shouted, and immediately, a swordsman in armor came forward and grabbed the arms of the two swordsmen and took them away. "You are not allowed to cause trouble in the Border City. If you want to solve your problems, go outside the city." The general swordsman said something that seemed to be a threat, then turned around and walked away. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 354. This was the first time that the blood-iron swordsman had shown his extraordinary courage in front of Chu Mu. Especially the blood-iron swordsman wearing the general's armor, Chu Mu had a deep impression of him. One-eyed dragon might not even be able to take a single strike from him. Chu Mu thought to himself. The blood-iron swordsman wearing the general's armor was at least at the Chi High Realm, Desheng's sword chi level. Now that he had a better understanding of the security of the desolate city, Chu Mu walked towards the desolate building. According to the Desolate Border Chronicle, the desolate city was dominated by the desolate border king, the Jiang family. No one could compare to them. The blood-iron swordsman who was feared by many was from the Jiang family. Other than the desolate border king and the city lord of the desolate city, there were also a few other powerful families in the desolate city. The Lei family, the Chong family, and the Yi family. These three families were very powerful, but they were much weaker than the Jiang family. Even if they worked together, they would not be able to fight against the Jiang family. Even so, these families were still powerful in the eyes of many swordsmen. Other than these families, there was also the Desolate Sword Academy. It was established by the Jiang family and a few other families to cultivate outstanding swordsmen. It was similar to the Li State Sword Academy. The outstanding swordsmen would often be sent to the Great Kuan Sword Mansion to cultivate and become stronger. The desolate building could be said to be a landmark in the desolate city. When Chu Mu walked in front of the desolate building, he was stunned. It was more like a tower than a building. The entire desolate building was a tall tower. It stood tall and majestic on the ground of the desolate city, like a gigantic sword pointing towards the sky. Looking up from the bottom to the highest point, the desolate building had 8 floors. It was almost 100 meters tall and was the tallest building in the desolate city. It was said that the desolate building was built by Jiang Yi after he became the sword of Gojoseon. It belonged to the Jiang family. According to the Desolate Border Chronicles, the Jiang family did not use the desolate earth building for private use. Instead, they used it for public use, allowing everyone in the desolate border city to enter. Chu Mu's gaze landed on the plaque above the entrance of the Earth Wasteland building. The 3 words Earth Wasteland building were written in bold strokes, as if they contained a unique mystery. Withdrawing his gaze, Chu Mu strode into the Earth Wasteland building and walked up the stairs to the 2nd floor. The 1st floor of the Earth Wasteland building was where the auction was held. It was not usually open and would only be opened when there was an auction. The 2nd floor was a low-end free trade market, which was similar to a market. There were many stalls, but the items sold at the stalls were mostly suitable for swordsmen. Ordinary people were not qualified to trade here. The 2nd floor of the Earth Wasteland building was very large. After Chu Mu walked in, he glanced around and saw that the stalls were arranged in an orderly manner. There were rows and rows of stalls, and there was a distance of several meters between each stall. This allowed people to pass through easily without any hindrance. Chu Mu also noticed that there was a pattern to the arrangement of these stalls. They were divided into sections, such as the spiritual medicine section, the sword technique section, and so on. This way, it would be more convenient for people who wanted to buy things and save a lot of time. The 1st floor was not Chu Mu's destination, and the 2nd floor was not Chu Mu's destination either. His destination was the 5th floor. The 3rd floor was the mid-end free trade market, while the 4th floor was the high-end free trade market. As the name implied, the items sold at the high-end and mid-end places were definitely not ordinary. If one wanted to set up a stall in such a place, they would need to apply for verification before they could do so. The 5th floor did not have a specific name. It was also known as the Pill Sword Pavilion. It was mainly a place where elixirs and swords could be customized. Chu Mu walked up the stairs all the way to the 5th floor. The 5th floor was much smaller than the 2nd floor. It was only about half the size, but it was still very large. When Chu Mu walked into the Heavenly Pill Pavilion, a middle-aged scholar immediately came forward to greet him. "Greetings, sir. Welcome to the Heavenly Pill Pavilion." The middle-aged scholar looked refined. He cupped his hands and greeted Chu Mu with a smile. "Refining elixirs." Chu Mu directly stated his purpose for coming here. Hearing this, the middle-aged scholar quickly gestured with his hand. "Please come in and talk." He then shouted, "Serve tea." My surname is Su, and I am the deacon of the Heavenly Pill Pavilion. May I know what kind of elixir you would like to entrust to our pavilion? The middle-aged scholar asked with a smile as he gestured for Chu Mu to drink the tea. Heavenly Desolate Elixir. Chu Mu did not drink the tea and went straight to the point. Oh, the Heavenly Desolate Elixir is one of the best elixirs of our pavilion. You have found the right place. Deacon Su chuckled. As far as I know, the main ingredient of the Heavenly Desolate Elixir is the Heavenly Desolate root. The grade of the Heavenly Desolate Elixir is directly related to the grade of the Heavenly Desolate root. Since you want to entrust our pavilion to refine the Heavenly Desolate Elixir, you must have prepared the Heavenly Desolate root, right? 3-segment Heavenly Desolate root is 130, 2-segment Heavenly Desolate root is 50, and 1-segment Heavenly Desolate root is 15. Chu Mu said calmly. The eyes of the middle-aged scholar, Deacon Su, suddenly lit up. His face revealed a touch of excitement. 3-segment Heavenly Desolate root was the most common Heavenly Desolate root. It was a mid-grade elixir. Under normal circumstances, it would only be sold for 1 or 2 pieces or at most 5 pieces. Each piece would be worth 100 low-grade spirit stones. 2-segment Heavenly Desolate root was a high-grade elixir. It was rarer and more valuable than 3-segment Heavenly Desolate root. Each piece was worth at least 1,000 low-grade spirit stones. But this young swordsman in front of him said that he not only had 133-segment Heavenly Desolate roots, but also 52-segment Heavenly Desolate root. As for the Heavenly Wasteland root 15, it was as if Deacon Su's head had been smashed by a hammer, causing him to see stars and feel dizzy. A Heavenly Wasteland root 15 could be sold for at least 10,000 low-grade spirit stones. In other words, this young swordsman who looked to be at most 20 years old had Heavenly Desolate roots worth over 200,000 low-grade spirit stones. 200,000 low-grade spirit stones was not the main point. To the Heavenly Pill Pavilion, these spirit stones were nothing. The main point was that the Heavenly Pill Pavilion could not take out such a large number of Heavenly Desolate root. If he knew that Chu Mu was hiding a few pieces of Heavenly Desolate roots that were suspected to be king-grade elixirs, how shocked would he be? Do you plan to refine all of these Heavenly Desolate roots into Heavenly Desolate elixirs? Deacon Su's voice was trembling because of excitement. This was a big deal, and the Heavenly Pill Pavilion rarely encountered such a client. How confident are the alchemists of the Heavenly Pill Pavilion? Chu Mu asked. If you plan to entrust even 1 segment of Heavenly Desolate root to our pavilion, I will personally ask our alchemist, Hong Qianshan, to open the furnace. Master Hong's chances of refining low-grade Heavenly Desolate elixirs are 100%, mid-grade Heavenly Desolate elixirs are 90%, and high-grade Heavenly Desolate elixirs are no less than 70%. Deacon Su said, looking at Chu Mu with fervent eyes. In the entire desolate city, Master Hong's alchemy skills are the highest. If you say you are second, no one dares to say they are first. The Desolate Border Chronicle also stated that this alchemist called Hong Qianshan's alchemy skills were indeed the best in the desolate city. Otherwise, Chu Mu would not have specially come. How about this? Please wait for a moment, I will go and ask Master Hong. Deacon Su quickly got up and left a sentence, then hurriedly turned and left. A moment later, Deacon Su hurriedly returned with an excited expression on his face. Sir, Master Hong has agreed to refine the elixirs, but he has a condition. You have to give him all the supreme grade Heavenly Desolate root. The supplementary materials will be provided by our pavilion, and we will take 10% of the final Heavenly Desolate elixirs as a fee. Deacon Su quickly said, staring at Chu Mu with fervent eyes. He was afraid that Chu Mu would not agree, so he hurriedly said, Since you have come to the Heavenly Pill Pavilion, you should know that our pavilion normally takes 30% of the elixirs as a fee. 10% is our pavilion's discount. Did Master Hong say how many heavenly desolate elixirs can be refined from 130 mid-grade heavenly desolate roots, 50 high-grade heavenly desolate roots, and 15 supreme-grade heavenly desolate roots? Chu-Mu thought for a moment and asked. 130 mid-grade heavenly desolate roots can be refined into 130 low-grade heavenly desolate elixirs, 50 high-grade heavenly desolate roots can be refined into 45 mid-grade heavenly desolate elixirs, and 15 supreme-grade heavenly desolate roots can be refined into 11 high-grade heavenly desolate elixirs. Master Hong said that this is the most conservative estimate, and it will only be more, Deacon Su hurriedly said. How long will it take to refine these heavenly desolate elixirs? Chu-Mu asked again. A month. Master Hong will refine them day and night, and they will all be refined within a month, Deacon Su answered very quickly. I wonder if your pavilion has any heavenly desolate elixirs right now? Can you bring them over for me to take a look? Chu-Mu said after a moment of thought. Please wait a moment. Deacon Su left again, and soon came back with 3 small jade boxes, placing them in front of Chu-Mu. Our pavilion originally only had low-grade and mid-grade heavenly desolate elixirs, but because of the appearance of the heavenly desolate Earth Palace, a portion of the swordsmen found supreme-grade heavenly desolate roots in the heavenly desolate valley and sold them to our pavilion, which is why we have high-grade heavenly desolate elixirs. Chu-Mu nodded, and opened the jade boxes one by one, carefully observing the aura fluctuations within. After a while, he closed the 3rd jade box and placed it on the table. He already had an idea in his heart. Deacon Su, I wonder how much the different heavenly desolate elixirs are sold at? Under normal circumstances, a low-grade heavenly desolate elixir is worth 300 low-grade spirit stones. A mid-grade heavenly desolate elixir is worth 3,000 low-grade spirit stones, and a high-grade heavenly desolate elixir is worth 30,000 low-grade spirit stones. Deacon Su said, If you want to buy in bulk, I can make the decision to give you a 20% discount. Since that's the case, then I'll have to trouble your pavilion. Chu-Mu waved his hand, and pieces of heavenly desolate roots appeared on the table in front of him. There were 3 sections, 2 sections, and 1 section, causing Deacon Su's eyes to suddenly widen, and a bright light shot out from them. His hands trembled slightly, and he looked extremely excited. In a month, I will come back to your pavilion to collect the elixirs. Please wait a moment. Deacon Su did not immediately put away the heavenly desolate roots that made him excited. Instead, he wrote a note for Chu-Mu, stamped it with the Heavenly Pill Pavilion's golden seal, and handed it to Chu-Mu. In a month, you will have to bring this certificate to collect the elixirs. If the certificate is lost, it will be very difficult. After Chu-Mu received it, he looked at the contents and confirmed that there were no mistakes. He then looked at the golden seal and discovered that the golden seal was very unique, and was emitting a unique medicinal fragrance. Nodding his head, Chu-Mu stood up, and at the same time, kept the certificate into the high-grade spatial bracelet, and walked out of the Heavenly Pill Pavilion. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 355. The Deacon of Heavenly Artifact Pavilion handed a piece of paper back to Chu-Mu. At the same time, he said apologetically, Sir, I'm really sorry. Master Peng is unable to help you with the sword you want to forge. It's really a pity. Chu-Mu took the paper and replied. He stood up and was about to leave. The content on the paper was a part of the forging process for the Desolate Sky Sword. If you can find someone from the O clan, they might be able to forge the sword you want. The Deacon of Heavenly Artifact Pavilion said as he sent Chu-Mu out. The O clan? The Desolate Border Chronicle mentioned it, but it didn't go into detail. Chu-Mu didn't know much about it. That's right. The O clan's heaven-shaking fusion sword forging technique is unique and incomparably profound. If you can find someone from the O clan, you might be able to ask them for help. The Deacon of Heavenly Artifact Pavilion said. He couldn't help but sigh. It's a pity that the Oak clan was exterminated by the vicious Five a few years ago. I heard that none of them survived. The heaven-shaking fusion sword forging technique was also lost. I have to say that it's a great loss to the sword forging world. Yes. Chumu nodded. He left the Heavenly Artifact Pavilion and walked towards the stairs. The Deacon of Heavenly Artifact Pavilion also turned around and left. The Heavenly Pill Pavilion and Heavenly Artifact Pavilion in the desolate border city were actually just a small branch. The businesses of the Heavenly Pill Pavilion and Heavenly Artifact Pavilion covered the entire Eastern Sword region. They were extremely huge. However, Chumu didn't know about this. Standing at the entrance of the stairs, Chumu looked at the stairs that led upwards. According to the records of the Desolate Border Chronicles, the Desolate Earth building had a total of 8 floors. It was rumored that the 8th floor was where the Sword of Gojoseon cultivated in seclusion. A Sword of Gojoseon cultivated in seclusion. Just this name alone was enough to pique the curiosity of many people. If they entered the building, they might even be able to gain some enlightenment. In reality, the 8th floor of the desolate building did indeed contain some of the insights that the Sword of Gojoseon had gained from his meditation. This was something that everyone knew, and it was also recorded in the Desolate Border Chronicles. However, as the place where the Sword of Gojoseon cultivated, even if the Sword of Gojoseon was no longer around, no one could enter it as they wished. Even the people of the Jiang clan could not do so. Everything was not under the control of the Jiang clan. If one wanted to enter the 8th floor, they would have to pass through the 6th and 7th floors. The 6th floor was controlled by the Jiang family, and only those who met the Jiang family's requirements could enter the 7th floor. The 7th floor was a checkpoint. It was set up by the Sword of Gojoseon himself, and only those who passed the checkpoint could enter the 8th floor. Thinking back to the records of the Desolate Border Chronicles, it seemed like the first requirement to meet the Jiang family's requirements was to have the strength of a Qi High warrior. If Chumu used all of his strength right now, he would barely have the strength of a normal Qi High warrior. Thinking of this, Chumu turned around and walked down the stairs. Right at this moment, 2 figures were quickly walking up the stairs. Get out of the way for Brother Chen. The young swordsman who was walking in front immediately yelled at Chumu, forcing him to step aside and let the other man pass. Chumu didn't want to cause any trouble, so he stepped aside and let the 2 men pass. At the same time, he quickly sized up the 2 men. Both of them looked like young swordsmen in their 20s. Although the one in front was hiding his qi, some of it leaked out from time to time, allowing Chumu to know that he was a Qi High warrior who was even stronger than the one-eyed man. The one who was walking at the back was the one who really surprised Chumu. He was wearing a purple swordsman's robe, and he carried a purple sword on his back. He looked calm and majestic, and his qi was as deep as the ocean. Chumu couldn't tell what his real cultivation level was, and he could only guess that he was at the Qi High realm. The other man also noticed Chumu's gaze, and he glanced over. Suddenly, Chumu felt like he was standing in the middle of a barren land filled with rolling dark clouds. There was no one else on this land other than himself, and it was extremely desolate and lonely. All of a sudden, within the dark clouds that were as heavy as a mountain, a muffled sound of thunder exploded, and a shocking purple lightning shot out. Immediately after that, a huge purple lightning bolt that looked like a flood dragon roamed within the dark clouds, and it was extremely ferocious and overbearing. The 100-meter-long flood dragon was made of terrifying lightning bolts. Crackling lightning bolts surrounded its body, and it looked like it was going to destroy the world. In the next moment, dozens of purple lightning flood dragons suddenly dove down from the dark clouds, as if they were going to destroy this barren land. This kind of power made Chumu feel suffocated. Terrifying and destructive, Chumu's peak minor completion sword force was activated, and he used all of his strength to meet the flood dragons that were diving down from the sky. He wanted to destroy the flood dragons and the dark clouds in the sky with one strike. Suddenly, the flood dragons disappeared, and so did the dark clouds in the sky. Chu Mu only felt that the peak minor completion sword force that he used all of his strength to attack had missed. The feeling of emptiness made him feel extremely uncomfortable, and his chest felt stuffy. Luckily, he had only used his consciousness and not his real attack, or else he would have suffered internal injuries. When he woke up, the two young Chi-Hai swordsmen had already disappeared without a trace. Chu Mu did not even know where they went. Letting out a breath, the stuffy feeling in his chest slowly disappeared. Chu Mu looked serious, and he was extremely shocked. Strong, very strong, extremely strong. With just one look, he felt like he was unstoppable. He knew very well that even if he used all of his peak minor completion sword force, he would still not be able to withstand one strike from the opponent. This was Chu Mu's feeling, and it had never been wrong until now. What a terrifying guy! Chu Mu sighed in relief from the bottom of his heart. At this moment, Chu Mu suddenly felt his spiritual will tremble, and his powerful essence, Qi, and spirit also trembled at the same frequency. His heartbeat suddenly accelerated, and a large amount of blood rushed out from his heart and rushed through his entire body. Chu Mu felt a strong explosive force reverberating in his body. It was as if there was a ferocious beast hiding in his body. His heart had become even stronger because of the heaven wasteland transformation. Now it was beating so fast that it was like a drum, and it even caused the air around Chu Mu to vibrate slightly, forming a ripple that spread out. At this moment, his spiritual will and aura merged into one. The peak minor completion sword force surged out uncontrollably, turning into an invisible sharp sword that rushed up, as if it wanted to break through the earth wasteland building and pierce through the sky. Chu Mu seemed to hear a cracking sound, as if something like glass had suddenly broken. Immediately after, he felt that his peak minor completion sword force, which had been condensed into a sword, suddenly soared and broke through the shackles. Its power multiplied, and it became even stronger. Sword force Deshang. Chu Mu himself didn't think that even though his sword force had already reached the peak of small success and was only a fine line away from large success, breaking through to large success wasn't something that could be done overnight. He estimated that he would need another 3 months to half a year of comprehension before he could possibly break through to large success. Of course, if he could grasp an opportunity, he might be able to break through in an even shorter time. Opportunities were very mysterious and could not be controlled by humans. You did not know when it would appear or where it would appear. Often, it would appear when you were not paying attention. Sometimes, when an opportunity appeared, it would flash by so suddenly that you would miss it before you could react. It had to be said that Chu Mu was very lucky. Here, he had obtained an opportunity that was completely out of his expectations. Thus, he had successfully broken through the peak minor completion sword force and reached Deshang. Although the peak minor completion sword force was only a step away from Deshang's sword force, the difference was huge, and its power was several times stronger. Now, with Deshang's skybreaking sword, Chu Mu was confident that he could kill the one-eyed man in one move. Afraid that it would cause too much commotion, Chu Mu quickly withdrew Deshang's sword force. Everything returned to normal. Some of the stronger swordsmen felt the powerful sword force for a moment, but it disappeared in an instant, making them unable to catch it. Swoosh, 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 swoosh sounds could be heard. One by one, figures appeared at the top of the stairs. They all frowned and looked serious. Their gazes swept across Chu Mu's body, making Chu Mu feel a great amount of pressure. Chu Mu's expression tightened. The pressure made him feel like he was suffocating. Because these people were all swordsmen at the Chi-Hai realm, their gazes were all powerful. Luckily, their gazes quickly moved away from Chu Mu, and they all looked confused. In their eyes, Chu Mu looked like a 20-year-old swordsman who had completed the Chi transformation realm. At this age and with this level of cultivation, he could be called a genius. But compared to Deshang's sword force, there was a huge difference. They did not believe that Deshang's sword force would appear on a 20-year-old swordsman who had only completed the Qi transformation realm. Sword force was the first step in the path of swordsmanship. It was also the first step that countless swordsmen wanted to take. It was harder to understand and harder to improve than mental state. The swordsmen at the Qi High Realm felt that they could not find the swordsman who had released Deshang's sword force. They all turned around and left in disappointment. Chu Mu let out a sigh of relief, but he did not show it on his face. He was not stupid enough to go up and tell them that he was the one who had released Deshang's sword force. Walking down the stairs, Chu Mu went down to the 4th floor of the Earth Wasteland building. He glanced around. The 4th floor was slightly bigger than the 5th floor, but it was much smaller than the 2nd floor. As a high-end free market, the items on the 4th floor could not be compared to the items on the 2nd floor. Chu Mu did not go to the 3rd floor, so he did not know what it was like. But he knew that it could not be compared to the 4th floor. Chu Mu slowly walked past the stalls on the 4th floor. He carefully looked at the items on the stalls to see what they were and how they were priced. Gradually, Chu Mu had an idea of what was going on. He strode to an empty stall, stood in front of the stall, and pressed a button on the stall. Soon, a mature and charming woman in a yellow dress walked over leisurely. After a few words, Chu Mu took out 10,000 low-grade spirit stones to pay for the right to use the stall. Then, he took out the items that he wanted to sell and placed them on the stall. Then, he activated the seal on the stall. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 356. A stall on the 4th floor of the Earth Wasteland building cost 10,000 low-grade spirit stones a day and had to be paid immediately. If one wanted to set up a stall the next day, they had to pay first. In this way, it would put an end to those who wanted to fish in troubled waters. Otherwise, if someone wanted to bring something not very precious to the 4th floor to set up a stall, wouldn't it be a mess? If he had to arrange for a specialist to check, it would increase the investment of personnel. It would be better to charge a fee to set up a checkpoint. 10,000 low-grade spirit stones was a lot for many swordsmen. They might not be able to earn 10,000 low-grade spirit stones in a few years. Therefore, asking them to take out 10,000 low-grade spirit stones to set up a stall on the 4th floor to sell something that was worth less than 10,000 low-grade spirit stones was something they really couldn't do. Naturally, some unexpected situations were unavoidable. For example, a swordsman who didn't have many spirit stones saved up accidentally obtained a treasure but couldn't enter the 4th floor. He could only set up a stall on the 2nd floor of the low-end market. In the end, he made a fortune or someone else made a fortune, but it was very rare. Most of the items Chu Mu took out to set up a stall were swords. Among the high-grade swords obtained after killing the 5 beasts of the desolate border, other than the broken sword belonging to the one-eyed dragon, the other 4 beasts had a total of 6 swords. Among them, Lin Zhonglong and Yun Zhonghe used 2 short swords of different shape. In addition, there were also swords obtained from the underground palace. Among the 3 high-grade swords, the Speed Sky Sword was chosen by Chu Mu. As for the other 2, Chu Mu felt that they had no use for them. Currently, he needed a large amount of low-grade spirit stones, so he took them out to sell. In addition to the 9 high-grade swords, there were also 2 space bracelets. One was a low-grade space bracelets, obtained from the one-eyed dragon, and the other was a mid-grade space bracelets, obtained from the Heaven Wasteland Earth Palace. After Chu Mu saw the low, middle and high-grade Sky Wasteland pills in the Heavenly Pill Pavilion, he knew that even after refining the Sky Wasteland pills with the Sky Wasteland roots, it was still not enough for him to cultivate the Sky Wasteland sword body. Thus, he needed even more Heaven Desolate pills, which required even more spirit stones in order to purchase them. This forced him to come to the 4th floor of the Earth-desolate building to set up a stall and sell these swords spatial bracelet. Chumu's prices were all very fair. Because the one-eyed man's thin sword was damaged, its price was a bit higher than ordinary middle-grade swords, 10,000 low-grade spirit stones. As for the other 4 vicious borderlands 6 upper-grade swords, he gave them the same price, 30,000 low-grade spirit stones each. As for the high-grade swords brought from the Heaven Wasteland Palace, they were even more outstanding. Therefore, Chumu set a price of 50,000 low-grade spirit stones. The price of the low-grade spatial bracelet was also 50,000, but the price of the mid-grade spatial bracelet was 500,000. All in all, the swords and spatial bracelets Chumu took out to sell added up to 840,000 low-grade spirit stones. It was definitely a large sum of money. In fact, Chumu's harvest from the underground palace could be worth millions or even tens of millions. The things that he took out to sell were just the tip of the iceberg. Only the mid-grade spatial bracelet could be considered the big haul. The other big haul was another mid-grade spatial bracelet and a supreme-grade sword. The most important part was the dozen ores used to forge the Sky Wasteland sword. Each one of them was worth at least 200,000 low-grade spirit stones. As for the supreme-grade spirit herbs, they were indeed not bad. The total value was only a few 100,000 low-grade spirit stones. There were many swordsmen strolling around the market. The swordsmen on the 4th floor were at least at the Chi transformation realm. There were also many swordsmen at the Chi Sea realm. Not long after Chumu set up his stall, there were people who walked by to take a look. However, they did not have the intention to buy and turn to leave. Chumu was not in a hurry. What would come would eventually come. Sure enough, after a while, another person came by. He looked at the high-grade swords and asked a few questions before taking out 5 low-grade bronze spirit stone cards and handing them to Chumu. Each spirit stone card was worth 10,000 low-grade spirit stones. When the time came, they could be exchanged for low-grade spirit stones from the person in charge of the 4th floor of the Earth Wasteland building. They could also be used to pay for purchases. After all, not every swordsman had a spatial bracelet. Those who had spatial bracelets were usually low-grade and could not store many low-grade spirit stones. Therefore, spirit stone cards became a form of payment that replaced spirit stones. Spirit stone cards were divided into 4 grades and 4 colors: low grade, middle grade, high grade, supreme grade, and the other 4 colors were black iron, bronze, silver, and gold. A black iron low-grade spirit stone card was worth 1,000 low-grade spirit stones. A bronze low-grade spirit stone card was worth 10,000 low-grade spirit stones. A black iron mid-grade spirit stone card was worth 1,000 mid-grade spirit stones, and so on. After the first buyer, it didn't take long for the second buyer to arrive. Things like swords would never lack buyers. The second buyer bought 2 wolf-tooth short swords for a total of 60,000 low-grade spirit stones, which was equivalent to 6 low-grade bronze spirit stone cards. 4 hours later, even the one-eyed man's high-grade sword with a broken sword tip had been bought. The low-grade spatial bracelet had also been bought, leaving only the mid-grade spatial bracelet. Chumu's income was 340,000 low-grade spirit stones. The mid-grade spatial bracelet was worth 500,000 low-grade spirit stones. An average swordsman could not afford it, so Chumu was not in a hurry. Time passed slowly. Chumu had sold a lot of swords just now, which made the other stall owners very jealous. Although they were jealous and some even had bad intentions, they did not dare to make a move. There were iron-blood swordsmen here to maintain law and order. Unless they were looking for death. At this moment, a kind-looking middle-aged man in a green robe walked over with his hands behind his back. He stopped in front of Chumu's stall and his gaze fell on the middle-rank spatial bracelet. A glint flashed through his eyes. "Little brother, this mid-grade spatial bracelet is worth 300,000 low-grade spirit stones. I will take it." The kind-looking cyan-robed middle-aged man didn't give Chumu the slightest chance to retort. He immediately took out 3 white-silver low-grade spirit stone cards from his low-grade spatial bracelet and flicked them. The 3 cards flew in different trajectories and arcs in the air before finally landing in front of Chu Mu in a regular fan shape. The green-robed middle-aged man was at the Qi High realm, and this move displayed an extraordinary control ability. This also meant that his swordsmanship was extraordinary. This caused Chu Mu to squint his eyes. He understood what kind of mentality was hidden under the seemingly friendly face of the opponent. A show of strength. There are still 2 cards missing. Chu Mu was not intimidated. He glanced at the 4 low-grade bronze spirit stone cards in front of him and said to the middle-aged man in a green robe. The middle-aged man in a green robe's eyelids twitched. His eyes flashed and he snorted coldly, showing his dissatisfaction and anger. A mere Qi transformation realm swordsman who got a mid-grade spatial bracelet from God knows where dared to reject him. He had also thought that Chu Mu might be someone from a large family or faction, but he quickly rejected this idea. If he really was someone from a large family or faction, he wouldn't have set up a stall here, let alone sell a middle-grade spatial bracelet. Firstly, it was because of his identity. Secondly, it was because of the preciousness of the middle-grade space wristband. Even he didn't have one until now. If someone could reach the point where they could ignore the middle-grade space wristband, they would definitely not care about hundreds of thousands of low-grade spirit stones. Moreover, according to his experience, a swordsman who set up a stall in the Earth Wasteland building would not have a powerful backer. Therefore, the middle-aged man in a green robe felt that he had Zhou Dongwang in his hands unless the Jiang family intervened. Obviously, Chu Mu did not know any Jiang family members. However, this did not mean that he would be defeated. My name is Chang Zizai. The middle-aged man in a green robe's right hand turned the thumb ring on his left hand as he stared at Chu Mu. His kind face turned cold as he slowly opened his mouth to speak. His voice was just loud enough for the people around him to hear. Who was Chang Zizai? Chu Mu did not know, but when he saw the expressions of the surrounding stall owners change, he knew that Chang Zizai's identity was not ordinary. A thought flashed through his mind. Chang Zizai's surname was Chang. Could he be from the Chang family in Border City? If he was really from the Chang family, then he would be in big trouble. However, even if Chang Zizai was from the Chang family, Chu Mu couldn't sell the middle-rank spatial wristband to him for 400,000 low-rank spirit stones, especially when the other party had threatened him from the start. I am Chang Zizai from the Chang family, the cyan-robed middle-aged man added. His face flashed with an expression of pride as a member of the Chang family. Chu Mu had already guessed this, so he didn't show any shock. He only heard Chang Zizai continue, 300,000 low-grade spirit stones to buy your middle-grade spatial bracelet is already thinking highly of you. Sell it to me, and I'll remember you as a person. In the future, if you encounter any trouble in the desolate border region, when I'm in a good mood, perhaps I'll help you resolve it. But if you refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit, then don't blame me for being rude. Maybe it was because he was sure that Chu Mu did not have any powerful backers, and he was from the Chang family. Plus, he had the sword chi of a low chi high warrior. That was why he dared to threaten Chu Mu so recklessly. Even if you take out another 300,000 low-grade spirit stones, I will not sell it to you. Chu Mu hated being threatened and retorted without hesitation. So what if he was a low chi high warrior? So what if he was from the Chang family? Little brat, don't think that you are safe with the iron blood sword guards in the border city. I Chang Zizai will say this. Unless you hide in the border city for the rest of your life, I will kill you the moment you step out of the border city. Chang Zizai said fiercely, full of killing intent. He waved his hand and the sword aura was like silk. 3 low-grade silver spirit stone cards automatically flew into his hand and disappeared. Chang Zizai snorted and glanced at Chu Mu's face with his cold eyes. He turned around and walked away, leaving behind a frightening figure. The surrounding stall owners all looked at Chu Mu with pitiful gazes. Indeed, in the border city, even the Chang family had to follow the rules set by the Jiang family. Otherwise, the Jiang family would not show them any mercy just because they were one of the 4 big families in the border city. But as long as they did not fight in the border city and only threatened, the Jiang family would not care. Once they left the border city, the Jiang family would not care at all. It was not hard to imagine what would happen to this young swordsman who had offended Chang Zizai. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian.com to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 357. Perhaps it was because of Chang Zizai's appearance that no one patronized Chu Mu's stall after that. The middle-grade spatial bracelet was not sold. Chu Mu's expression didn't change. He was still as calm as before, as if he didn't put anything in his eyes. This calmness caused people to be surprised, but at the same time, some people thought he was pretending to be calm, but in reality, he was extremely nervous. In any case, the middle-grade spatial bracelet was still there when it was late at night and the stall time ended. Chu Mu had no choice but to put it away and leave the Earth Wasteland building. The target has left the Earth Wasteland building. Pay attention to his next move. Pairs of eyes were secretly watching Chu Mu's every move. Chu Mu felt like he was being spied on, but he could not find who was spying on him. He had a vague feeling that it had something to do with Chang Zizai from the Chang clan. It was already late at night. Desolate City was brightly lit and bustling. This was the time when the swordsman's nightlife truly began. All kinds of taverns, brothels, casinos, and other businesses were flourishing. Chu Mu did not leave the city. Instead, he found an inn to stay in. The inn was called the Desolate Border Inn. It was different from ordinary inns. Only swordsmen were allowed to stay. They did not charge silver, only spirit stones. Chu Mu paid 100 low-grade spirit stones for a room that could only be used for 1 day. The target is staying in the Desolate Border Inn. Keep a close eye on him. If he shows any signs of leaving the desolate city, report it immediately. Yes. Once Chu Mu entered the room of the inn, he felt that although 100 low-grade spirit stones was a little expensive, it was worth it. There was a room and a living room, and the decorations were rather exquisite and simple. It was filled with the unique flavor of the desolate border. At first glance, one would feel very comfortable. Furthermore, the density and purity of the spirit chi were very high. It was even better than the heaven-grade sword tower in the sword residence. First, he summarized today's harvest. Then, he took out the spirit-devouring bead from his space bracelet. Immediately, the surrounding spiritual energy was continuously absorbed and purified. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, Chu Mu would often put away the spirit-devouring bead when he wasn't cultivating. Otherwise, others would easily sense the unusual fluctuation of spirit chi and cause some unnecessary trouble. Pure spiritual chi was constantly being absorbed by the spirit-devouring orb, nourishing Chu Mu's body. Meanwhile, Chu Mu was immersed in comprehending the sword force that he had just broken through to Desheng, stabilizing it. For the entire night, Chu Mu did not rest at all. Time slowly passed as he meditated and cultivated. When dawn arrived, Chu Mu finished cultivating the 9 revolutions of heavenly origin. Only then did he leave the inn and head to the 4th floor of the Earth Wasteland building to pay 10,000 low-grade spirit stones to set up a stall. Because of Chang Zizai, Chu Mu was immediately recognized as soon as he set up a stall on the 4th floor of the Earth Wasteland building. However, they did not know Chu Mu's name and origin. It was still a mid-grade space bracelet. Very quickly, the morning passed and no one showed any interest in it. Chu Mu calmly sat on the stall's chair and closed his eyes to rest. However, in his heart, he was thinking about the mystery of the secret technique he had obtained from the underground palace. He was not worried at all that the mid-grade space bracelet would be snatched away. Time passed slowly. Noon passed, afternoon passed, and evening came. Chu Mu was still sitting on the chair, motionless. Only his long and light breathing made people know that he was still alive. For a Qi transformation realm swordsman, as long as he did not consume too much energy, it would not affect him much even if he did not eat for an entire day. This kid is really stupid. He offended the Chong clan and still wants to sell something. Isn't that so? What a pity. If only that mid-grade space bracelet was mine. If it were me, I would sell it to Chang Zizai for 300,000 low-grade spiritual stones to avoid trouble. The mid-grade space bracelet is worth 500,000 low-grade spiritual stones. If he sold it for 300,000 low-grade spiritual stones, he would lose 200,000 low-grade spiritual stones. If it were me, I wouldn't be able to make it. All kinds of discussions broke out, but Chu Mu's expression remained unchanged. At this time, Chang Zizai slowly walked over with his hands behind his back. He stood in front of Chu Mu's stall and sneered, "If you take the initiative to give this mid-grade space bracelet to me and kowtow to me, I will let you go and let this matter rest." Chang Zizai's appearance immediately attracted the attention of many people around him. Whether it was the stall owner or the swordsman who came to buy something, they all stared at Chu Mu to see how he would respond. However, Chu Mu did not even open his eyes. His breathing did not change, and he did not even move his fingers. It was as if he did not hear Chang Zizai's words and ignored him. After Chang Zizai spoke, he stared at Chu Mu's reaction. However, he realized that Chu Mu did not move at all. Chang Zizai's eyelids slightly trembled, the corners of his eyes twitched, and the veins on his forehead bulged. His fingers unconsciously tightened as anger filled his chest. He subconsciously wanted to pull out his sword and kill Chu Mu. Luckily, he knew that once he pulled out his sword and killed Chu Mu, he would also die. Even if the Chong clan intervened, they would not be able to save him. Biting his teeth, Chang Zizai stared at Chu Mu. His eyes were extremely cold and filled with killing intent. It was as if he wanted to kill Chu Mu with his eyes. There was nothing he could do. Chang Zizai humphed coldly and walked away in big strides. A mere Qi transforming realm sword warrior dared to make things difficult for him, a Qi transforming realm sword warrior. However, there was nothing he could do. The desolate city had its own rules. The surrounding people secretly wiped away their cold sweat as they looked at Chu Mu with pity. Chu Mu could clearly feel Chang Zizai's killing intent. If I am still unable to sell this mid-rank spatial bracelet today, then I don't need to set up my stall anymore. I should just focus on staying in the inn and learn the secret skill before leaving the desolate city. Chu Mu thought to himself. To set up a stall on the 4th floor of the desolate building, one had to pay 10,000 low-rank soul stones a day. For the current Chu Mu, 10,000 low-rank soul stones was quite a large sum. Soon night fell. Because of Chang Zizai's appearance again, Chu Mu's stall became even more deserted. No one even went near it, as if they were afraid of being affected. Oh, a mid-rank spatial bracelet. Not bad, I want it. At this time, an indifferent voice was heard. 2 figures strode over, and immediately attracted the attention of the crowd. When the swordsman wanted to see clearly who was so bold, their eyes fell on the faces of the 2 people. Suddenly, their bodies trembled, and their expressions changed drastically. It was as exciting as it could be. Chu Mu also opened his eyes and was slightly startled. The 2 people who had come were the 2 young swordsmen he had met on the stairs. Among them, the purple figure had left a deep impression on him. It was because of his own sword power that he had been able to break through to Deshang's level. In the next moment, 5 silver low-rank soul stone cards shot out and gently fell in front of Chu Mu. Chu Mu swept his hand and put the 5 silver low-rank soul stone cards into the spatial bracelet. Then, he opened the seal on the mid-rank spatial bracelet. With a gentle flick of his finger, the mid-rank spatial bracelet flew out and was caught by the purple-robed young man. The purple-robed young man glanced at Chu Mu and smiled as if he was greeting him. Then, he turned around and walked away, leaving behind a back view that made people look up to him. Chu Mu saw that the surrounding swordsmen were looking at him with admiration and respect. This purple-robed young man was clearly a powerful swordsman. Chu Mu couldn't help but recall the records of powerful swordsmen in the Desolate Border Chronicles. However, he didn't know who this purple-robed young man was. After all, in the Desolate Border Chronicles, there was no record of a purple-robed young swordsman. Perhaps that purple-robed young swordsman wasn't enough to be listed in the Desolate Border Chronicles, but he was definitely a powerful swordsman. Then, from the surrounding swordsmen's discussion, Chu Mu finally knew the purple-robed young swordsman's identity. "I thought someone was looking for trouble. I didn't expect it to be him." If it was someone else, Chang Zizai might have looked for trouble. But facing him, no matter if it was his background or his own strength, even 10 Chang Zizai wouldn't be enough. Yeah, he is from the Jiang family after all. So that's how it is. The Desolate Border City is the Jiang family's city. The Jiang family is the most powerful and no one dares to go against them. Chu Mu thought to himself. As he continued to listen and heard more information, Chu Mu's heart was filled with shock. He couldn't keep his calm expression. Of course, he is the #1 genius of the Jiang family, Jiang Liken. He is only 28 years old and has already reached the Qi High realm. Deshang's sword Qi is many times stronger than Chang Zizai. That's not the main point. The main point is that he is a sword master. There are only 81 sword masters in the entire Kuan dynasty, and every single one of them is a powerful existence that can kill people above their level. Even a powerful perfect Qi High sword warrior would not be able to defeat him. Sword hero. Chu Mu's heart felt like it had been hit by a giant hammer. Sword hero was not a classification based on the level of cultivation. It was a title and a supreme honor. Just as the swordsman said, there were only 81 sword heroes in the Dakuan dynasty. There was no ranking based on strength. There were more than 81 sword heroes in the Dakuan dynasty. However, the requirements to become a sword hero were too strict. Therefore, there were only 81 sword heroes in the Dakuan dynasty. To become a sword hero, one did not need to have a high level of cultivation. Otherwise, one could just choose the swordsman with the highest level of cultivation. To become a sword hero, there were 3 prerequisites. First, the age must not be over 30 years old. Second, the level of cultivation must not be lower than the Qi High realm. Third, the sword force must have reached perfection. Maybe the first 2 prerequisites were easier to fulfill. After all, the world of swordsmen never lacked geniuses. To reach the Qi High realm before the age of 30 was not difficult for many swordsmen. Only the 3rd prerequisites were beyond the reach of countless swordsmen. To reach perfection of sword force before the age of 30, one could imagine how difficult it was. Even many 9th transformation realm swordsmen might not be able to reach perfection of sword force. Furthermore, those were only the 3 prerequisites. After fulfilling these 3 prerequisites, one could go to the East Saint Sub-Palace and apply. After passing the test, one would be tested. Only by passing the test could one obtain the title of Sword Hero and leave one's name on the Sword Hero Sky Steel in the East Saint Sub-Palace. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 358. Master, that kid has not left the inn for 10 days since he moved in. It looks like he is planning to hide in the inn. He can't hide forever. Continue to keep an eye on him. If there is any movement, report it immediately. Chang Zizai's eyes were filled with killing intent. His face was cold, and even his tone was cold. Yes. In one of the best rooms in the inn, Chu Mu was concentrating on his training. His original plan was to ask the Heaven Dan Pavilion to make the Tian Huang Dan, then sell the top-rank swords and the space bracelet. After earning some soul stones, He would return to the Soul Stone mining area and wait for a month before going back to the city to get the Tian Huang Dan. But man proposes, God disposes. He did not expect Chang Zizai to appear. Chu Mu already knew that Chang Zizai's sword chi was at the initial chi high realm. He had trained an earth realm ancient sword art and had an extreme grade sword. If a chi high realm sword artist did not have a high quality sword or an earth realm ancient sword art, then they would be at the bottom of the chi high realm. Chang Zizai was from the Chang family and had a lot of resources, so he was definitely not at the bottom of the Qi High Realm. In fact, his strength was comparable to other Qi High Realm sword artists. Even if he had Deshang's sword force, even if he was sure that Deshang's sword force could kill a Qi High Realm sword artist, Chu Mu did not have the confidence to fight against Chang Zizai. He also knew that Chang Zizai would definitely send people to keep an eye on him. If he showed any signs of leaving the city, once he stepped out of the city, Chang Zizai would immediately chase after him and kill him. Without any other choice, Chu Mu could only stay in the city for now. He paid 3,000 low-grade soul stones and booked one of the best rooms in the inn for a month. Chu Mu wanted to improve his strength as much as possible within this 1 month. The cultivation of the Tianyuan sword qi, the comprehension of Deshang's sword momentum, the comprehension of the artistic conception, the comprehension of the fusion of the 13 styles of golden blade, the improvement of the stone quaking power, the tempering of the heavenly wasteland sword body, the comprehension of the secret techniques, and so on. Chu Mu seemed to have returned to the state of crazy cultivation in the cave residence in the mining area. And this time, he was even crazier. There were 24 hours in a day, and Chu Mu spent at least 20 hours on cultivation. With this kind of crazy cultivation, the increase in his strength was also very obvious. On the 12th day, one of his 5 viscera and 6 bowels completed the heavenly wasteland transformation. Chu Mu could feel that his body had been strengthened with the heavenly wasteland transformation. It seemed that the heavenly wasteland transformation was gradually affecting his entire body. On the 24th day, one of his 5 viscera and 6 bowels completed the heavenly wasteland transformation. Chu Mu guessed that it took 12 days for one of his viscera to complete the heavenly wasteland transformation. Of course, this was with the help of the ancient heavenly wasteland elixir. By now, 1.5 of the 20 ancient heavenly wasteland elixirs had been consumed by Chu Mu. Chu Mu knew that if he had not been the first to snatch the ancient heavenly wasteland elixir, his heart would not have undergone the heavenly wasteland transformation. No, it would be difficult to even achieve 1/10 of the heavenly wasteland transformation. Thinking of snatching the ancient heavenly wasteland elixir, he thought of Ingjiani. Ingjiani should hate him to the core. 7 killings Sword Wei. The Sword Wei inheritance was indeed powerful, but the next time they met, he would definitely cut Ingjiani down with his sword. He believed that Ingjiani also had this idea in his heart. The Heavenly Wasteland Sword Body chapter had already completed the Heavenly Wasteland transformation of 3 of his viscera. At the same time, the sky-traversing secret technique had also reached the 2nd level. The secret technique obtained from the underground palace was also about to be completed. In the blink of an eye, 30 days had passed. The 13 moves of the Golden Edge sword art had been completely integrated into the sky-splitting sword attack, causing the power of the sky-splitting sword attack to increase once again. The stone-shaking energy had taken another step forward on the foundation of the small success. The secret technique obtained from the underground palace had been truly completed, and Deshang's sword momentum had been completely stabilized. Perhaps because of the pressure, the tearing concept had increased once again, reaching 35%. The 4th of his 5 viscera and 6 bowels hadn't completely transformed, but Chu Mu's sword aura cultivation had increased by a lot. It was 30% more than before. This was due to the pure and dense spirit aura in the desolate border inn's upper room, as well as the effects of the spirit-eating pearl and the middle-rank spirit stone. Without these things, it would probably take at least a year to reach his current level. It's time to leave. Chu Mu's eyes shone brightly as he stood up and walked out of the room. After a month of hard work, his strength had increased once again. However, Chu Mu himself was not sure to what extent his strength had increased. He only felt that he could fight against the one-eyed man without using the secret technique. One could imagine how much Chu Mu's strength had increased during this period of time. The moment Chu Mu left the inn, he was immediately monitored, and all kinds of information began to spread. As one of the 4 big clans of the desolate city, the Chang clan was not to be underestimated, even though they were far from the Jiang clan. They had their own perfect intelligence system. Although Chang Zizai could not use this intelligence system, he could still borrow some of it. The target is heading to the Earth Wasteland building. The target is heading to the 5th level of the Earth Wasteland building. Chu Mu once again arrived at the 5th level of the Earth Wasteland building and walked directly to the Heavenly Elixir Pavilion. It was the same middle-aged scholar, Attendant Su, who had left a deep impression on Chu Mu. Thus, when he saw Chu Mu, his eyes lit up, and he immediately went forward to welcome him. Your distinguished self, I was thinking that since today was the day of your distinguished self's pill collection, your distinguished self should have come. I didn't expect that just as I was thinking, your distinguished self would actually appear. Deacon Su laughed and invited Chu Mu into the pavilion to take a seat of honor before bringing over a pot of good tea. Have you refined the elixir? Chu Mu smiled and asked. Fortunately, I did not disappoint you. Attendant Su chuckled. Chu Mu immediately took out the certificate and handed it to him. Attendant Su took a look at it and said, Even if I recognize you, without this certificate, you will not be able to collect the elixir. This is the pavilion's rule. Oh, if anyone comes to the Heavenly Elixir Pavilion with this certificate, they can also collect the elixir? Chu Mu asked with a smile. That's right. This is the pavilion's principle. Attendant Su smiled and said, Sir, please wait for a moment. I will go and collect the elixir now. Chu Mu was secretly looking forward to Attendant Su's arrival. About 15 minutes later, Deacon Su arrived with another person. It was an old man at the Qi High Realm. He was wearing a red robe, and there was a strong fire element vibration around his body, bringing with it a bit of heat. Young friend, you are the one who asked me to refine the elixir. The old man walked over and spoke first. His voice was deep and powerful. He stroked his long beard and smiled at Chu Mu. Senior, are you Master Hong? Chu Mu stood up and saluted with a sword. Yes, I am. Master Hong smiled and said. He looked at Chu Mu's happy face, as if he had seen his family. This made Chu Mu feel very confused. Soon, Master Hong solved Chu Mu's doubts. It turned out that Master Hong had been stuck at the bottleneck of alchemy for many years. This time, because of the appearance of the Heaven Wasteland Earth Palace, many swordsmen found the best quality Heaven Wasteland root. Among them, the Heavenly Elixir Pavilion bought a portion. Master Hong used it to refine the top-quality Heaven Wasteland elixir. This shook his bottleneck, and there seemed to be signs of a breakthrough. Unfortunately, the best quality Heaven Wasteland roots were too few. With Chu Mu's arrival and the 15 best quality Heaven Wasteland roots, Master Hong saw the hope of a breakthrough. That was why he immediately agreed. Moreover, he only asked for 10% of the elixir, which was 20% less than usual. After the Heaven Wasteland roots given by Chu Mu were all refined into Heaven Wasteland elixir, Master Hong finally broke through his bottleneck and became an Alchemy Grandmaster. Alchemy Grandmaster and Alchemy Grandmaster. The difference of one word was like the difference between heaven and earth, and the person who helped him become an Alchemy Grandmaster was Chu Mu. Without Chu Mu's 15 best quality Heaven Wasteland roots, Master Hong didn't know how long it would take for him to break through the bottleneck and become an Alchemy Grandmaster. It could be a year, or 5 years, or even longer. In a sense, he owed Chu-Mu a favor. The current me has a 50% chance of using the king-grade elixir to refine the elixir. Master Hong said again, causing Chu-Mu's heart to tremble slightly. He remembered that there were still a few heavenly desolate roots in his high-quality spatial bracelet that were suspected to be king rank. Should he take them out for Master Hong to concoct heavenly desolate pills? The thought flashed through his mind, but he felt that the 50% chance was too low. The king-grade Heaven Wasteland roots were not the best quality Heaven Wasteland root. There were only a few of them. Sir, there are a total of 130 low-grade Heaven Wasteland elixirs, 48 mid-grade Heaven Wasteland elixirs, and 12 top-grade Heaven Wasteland elixirs. Our Heavenly Pill Pavilion will deduct 10% of the cost. There are still 117 low-grade Heaven Wasteland elixirs, 43 mid-grade Heaven Wasteland elixirs, and 11 top-grade Heaven Wasteland elixirs. All of them are here, Deacon Su said as he waved his hand. Gourds appeared on the table in front of Chu-Mu. Chu-Mu thought for a moment and knew that the Heavenly Pill Pavilion was giving him face again. 10% of the low-grade Sky Wasteland pellets was 13 pellets, but 5 mid-grade Sky Wasteland pellets were deducted, so it was normal to round it up. As for the high-grade Sky Wasteland pellets, they could actually deduct 2 pellets, which was a round number, but deducting 1 pellet was indeed giving them face. Thank you. Chu-Mu waved his hand and kept all the gourds into his spatial bracelet. The Heavenly Pill Pavilion had a good reputation and wouldn't ruin their reputation. How many Heaven Wasteland elixirs do you have? I want to buy them in bulk. We only have 180 low-grade Heaven Wasteland elixirs, 75 mid-grade Heaven Wasteland elixirs, and only 9 top-grade Heaven Wasteland elixirs. Deacon Su replied, If you want all of them, I'll give you a 30% discount. The total is 384,300 low-grade spirit stones, which is a round number of 380,000 low-grade spirit stones. I want all the elixirs. Chu-Mu smiled and took out 4 silver low-grade spirit stones cards. The total was 400,000. Since you gave me face, I'll give you face. Deacon Su didn't care about the 20,000 low-grade spirit stones and accepted Chu-Mu's 4 silver low-grade spirit stones cards. Finally, under Master Hong's suggestion, he gave Chu-Mu a bronze Heaven Pill sword token. That was the symbol of the Heavenly Pill Pavilion's VIP. Only a few people could get it. The reason why Chu-Mu could get it was because of him that Master Hong was able to break through the bottleneck and become an alchemist grandmaster. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 359. There were 297 low-grade Sky Desolate pills, 118 mid-grade Sky Desolate pills, and 20 high-grade Sky Desolate pills. These were all the Sky Desolate pills that Chu-Mu had obtained from the Heavenly Pill Pavilion. In addition, there was also a bronze Heavenly Pill sword token that represented his status as a VIP of the Heavenly Pill Pavilion. After rejecting Master Hong's invitation to stay, Chu-Mu bid farewell and left the Earth Desolate building. He walked towards the gates of the desolate city as fast as he could, but he did not immediately leave the city. Chu-Mu's movements were very fast, and the people who were monitoring him were not bad either. The moment Chu-Mu left the Earth Desolate building for the city gates, they reported the news. In the end, Chu-Mu did not leave the city. Instead, he walked around the gates of the desolate city before walking towards another small street. He walked into a shop, walked around, and walked out again. Chu-Mu knew that there were spies monitoring him. Once he left the city, Chang Zizai would immediately chase after him. So, what he was doing now was to disrupt the spy's vision as much as possible. Inside the city, he could not use his movement skills. Otherwise, he would attract the attention of the Iron Blood Swordsman. That was not a good idea. Chu-Mu could only try his best to go to places with more people. The more people there were, the livelier it would be. And the livelier it was, the harder it would be to monitor him. Chu Mu was very patient. A swordsman must have patience. Otherwise, it would be difficult for him to achieve anything. Walking around, Chu Mu spent 4 to 6 hours strolling around the desolate city. He also walked towards the gates of the desolate city many times. After pausing for a while, he did not leave the city. Instead, he turned and walked towards other shops. Every time Chu Mu walked to the gates of the desolate city, the spies would report the news. Every time, Chang Zizai would rush over in excitement. In the end, before he arrived, he would receive news that Chu Mu did not leave the city. After many times, Chang Zizai became furious. He ordered his spies to only report when they saw Chu Mu actually walk out of the desolate city. The spies were also very clear about Chu Mu's intentions. He must have sensed their surveillance, and the purpose of doing this was to interfere with their surveillance and judgment. They had no choice but to work even harder, afraid that something would go wrong. However, people would always be careless. Chu Mu once again came to the desolate city gate. This time, just as the scouts thought that Chu Mu was going to intentionally disturb them, Chu Mu suddenly charged towards the city gate and left. The spies were stunned at first. At this moment, Chu Mu had already walked out of the city gates and sped away. Only then did the spies come to their senses and hurriedly report. Chang Zizai had been waiting for this opportunity. As soon as he received the news from the spies, he immediately left a tea house not far from the city gate and went to the city gate at the fastest speed. At this moment, Chang Zizai wished that he could grow a pair of wings on his back and rush out of the desolate city at lightning speed. However, he had no choice. Although he had mastered a secret flying technique, he was not allowed to fly in the desolate city. Otherwise, he would be targeted by the Iron Blood Swordsman. When Chang Zizai could not wait to rush out of the desolate city, he looked around and did not see Chu Mu's figure. His face became extremely gloomy. "Even if you escape to the ends of the earth, I will find you," Chang Zizai muttered to himself. Chang Zizai muttered to himself. His voice was cold and contained a shocking murderous intent. This chi-transforming swordsman, who dared to reject him twice in public, had long been on his must-kill list. Sword chi surged around him like a surging tide. Light blue waves moved behind him and finally condensed into a pair of light blue sword chi wings. The wings flapped, and Chang Zizai soared into the sky. He turned in midair and shot forward like an arrow. He did not believe that this damned chi-transforming swordsman could escape from under his nose. In the blink of an eye, Chang Zizai had rushed hundreds of meters away, but he still did not see Chu Mu's figure. The moment Chu Mu walked out of the desolate city, he used the sky-traversing secret art. He did not care about his sword chi consumption and quickly left. Although his overall strength had increased a lot, Chu Mu still did not want to fight with Chang Zizai, who was only at the low chi high realm. However, Chang Zizai was still a sword warrior at the low chi high realm. He was also from the Chang family and had a lot of resources. This made him stronger than other sword warriors at the low chi high realm. Not long after, Chang Zizai saw Chu Mu, who was also flying in midair. He was happy, and the sword chi wings on his back suddenly flapped even faster. With a swoosh sound, his speed increased by 50%. Feeling the strong killing intent coming from behind him, Chu Mu knew that the interference he had done before had only bought him some time. In the end, Chang Zizai still caught up with him. His speed increased again, but his sword chi was also being consumed faster. Luckily, he had the soul-devouring orb that was constantly absorbing the spirit chi around him. He also had a mid-rank soul stone in his hand that was constantly extracting spirit chi to replenish his sword chi. His original plan was to use the sky-traversing secret art to quickly leave the desolate city so that Chang Zizai would not be able to catch up with him. This was the ideal ending, but it was not like that. Chang Zizai's speed was much faster than he had expected. Then let me try out the power of the second stage of the sky traversing secret art. Chu Mu thought to himself. He activated the sky origin sword chi in his body and started to circulate it at a high speed in a special way. Suddenly, the sword chi wings on Chu Mu's back started to change strangely. They seemed to have become thinner and sharper like a sword. In an instant, the changed sword chi wings started to vibrate at a high speed. They vibrated over 100 times in a single breath, causing the surrounding air to shatter and producing a faint and ear-piercing buzzing sound. With a sharp whistle, Chu Mu's speed suddenly increased by several times. He streaked across the sky like a bolt of lightning and disappeared from Chang Zizai's sight in a flash. Only after that did a powerful explosion sound like thunder. Chang Zizai seemed to have seen the air in front of him explode, as if it was solid. His eyes were wide open and his mouth was slightly agape. His face was filled with surprise. He even stopped in the air and watched the changing air flow in front of him. He watched as his target turned into a black dot in front of him. What secret art is that? No matter what secret art you use, it won't last long. Chang Zizai quickly recovered and snorted coldly. He knew very well that the more profound and powerful the secret art was, the more energy it would consume. With his sword chi cultivation that had not even reached the peak of the chi transformation realm, it was impossible for him to last long. In terms of endurance, he was much weaker than Chang Zizai. Thinking of this, Chang Zizai's sword chi surged again. He did not care about the energy consumption. His speed increased a lot in an instant as he rushed forward to catch up. Countless streams of air flowed backward. Each stream of air was comparable to the sharpness of a low-rank sword. It was extremely terrifying, and they all charged towards Chu Mu, slicing past his protective sword aura. Even though Chu Mu's protective sword aura was very powerful, in front of so many streams of air that were comparable to the sharpness of a low-rank sword, it was unable to withstand the attacks and was immediately broken open. In the next breath, the formless protective sword aura was also broken open, and the low-rank inner armor was activated, barely holding on. Chu Mu truly experienced what it meant to be as fast as lightning. The speed that he used to think was very fast was nothing compared to what he was doing now. Unfortunately, it could only last for 10 breaths. Otherwise, if he continued, not only would his sword chi be used up, his inner armor would also be broken, and his body would be severely injured. 3,000 meters in 10 breaths. The second level of the sky traversing secret art, soaring into the sky. The sky traversing secret art was a very profound secret art. The first level was the foundation, where the sword chi wings appeared on the back. This level was the same as the other flying secret arts, and there was not much difference in speed. The second layer was the first application of the secret technique. It used a special sword chi transportation method to change the shape of the sword chi wings, causing the speed to increase by several times in an instant. Although the duration was very short, it was unique whether it was used in escaping or chasing. Soaring into the sky. As for the third level of the secret art, it was even more mysterious. However, Chu Mu had only reached the second level so far. It would take him a long time to reach the third level, which was even more difficult. The barren city was quite far from the mining area. 1 month ago, Chu Mu used his movement art to rush from the mining area to the barren city. It took him 8 hours to reach the barren city. Right now, using the sky-traversing secret art was even faster, but it would still take him at least 4 hours. Obviously, his sword chi cultivation was not enough for him to use the sky-traversing secret art for 4 hours in a row. Not to mention, using soaring into the sky had consumed 1/3 of his Tian Yuan sword chi. After consuming the chi returning pill, with the help of the spirit-eating bead and the mid-rank spirit stone, his recovery speed could not keep up with his consumption speed. Not long after, Chang Zizai saw Chu Mu's figure again. Chang Zizai's sword chi was at least 10 times more than Chu Mu's, and its purity was also above Chu Mu's Tian Yuan sword qi. Although the flying secret art he cultivated was more ordinary and did not have the application of soaring into the sky, it was better in terms of endurance. Chang Zizai's qi came again and quickly approached, making Chu Mu feel very helpless. There's still a long way to go to the desolate mining area. Before I reach the mining area, I'm afraid Chang Zizai will catch up to me, Chu Mu thought to himself as he flapped his sword qi wings. Junior, I advise you to surrender and obediently give up all your treasures, and I will leave you with an intact corpse. Otherwise, Chang Zizai said as he sped up to catch up. His voice ignored the obstruction of the air under the effect of the sword qi and shot towards Chu Mu, falling into Chu Mu's ears. The last sentence became extremely cold and creepy. I will make you wish you were dead. Chang Zizai's threat was not taken seriously by Chu Mu. He was still thinking of countermeasures. Junior, you don't have much sword qi left, do you? Even if you have a way to recover sword qi, you can't compare to me. Chang Zizai kept talking to disturb Chu Mu's mind. Junior, unless a miracle happens, once I catch up to you, I will capture you and torture you. I will let you know the consequences of offending me twice. Chang Zizai did not care whether Chu Mu heard his words or not. He said them one after another. This was a psychological tactic to disturb his mind. The only thing I can do now is to fight. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 360. Stopping and turning around, Chu Mu's body seemed to be frozen in the air as he faced Chang Zizai, who was chasing after him. His expression was cold. The speed of flying into the sky was extremely fast, but it consumed a lot of energy and could not be maintained for long. The speed of the first level of the sky traversing secret art was not as fast as Chang Zizai's speed. This was not because the sky traversing secret art was not good enough, but because the difference in sword qi was too big. Otherwise, if Chu Mu was at the Qi High Realm, even if he was only at the beginning of the Qi High Realm, Chang Zizai would not be able to catch up to him with just the first level of the sky traversing secret art. There were no ifs in this world. The fact was that Chu Mu's sword qi was only at the peak of the Qi transformation realm. There was a big difference between him and Chang Zizai. Under Chang Zizai's pursuit, he could not escape. Since he could not escape, he could only fight. Thinking up to this point, Chu Mu's heart felt a burst of fire. His heartbeat suddenly sped up, and the thumping sounds were like the beating of a large drum. A large amount of blood gushed out from his heart wave after wave like a surging tide, impacting his entire body. This caused Chu Mu's body to heat up, and at the same time, he felt waves of tyrannical energy accumulate and surge within his body. The tyrannical qi spread out from Chu Mu's body and turned into a strong storm, causing the weather to change. Gusts of wind blew past Chu Mu, causing his long black hair and clothes to flutter in the wind. The wind was as sharp as a sword. Chu Mu's qi was getting stronger and stronger, but Chang Zizai was not afraid at all. In his eyes, this kind of qi was not enough. Haha, you know your place. Obediently hand over all your treasures, and I'll leave you with a whole corpse. Chang Zizai stopped 100 meters away from Chu Mu. To him, 100 meters was nothing more than a breath's time. Hearing Chang Zizai's words, Chu Mu did not respond. His expression was cold as he held the Earth Essence sword in one hand and the Void Speed sword in the other. The sword qi wings on his back flapped slightly. While using the secret technique, the sword qi would constantly be consumed. At this time, without using medium-grade spirit stones to recover, Chu Mu knew that he wouldn't be able to last much longer. One sword strike. He only had one chance. If he could not kill Chang Zizai in one strike, it would be very disadvantageous for him if he ended up in a protracted battle. Was there a chance? After going through the simulation again and again, Chu Mu was sure that there was a chance. Chang Zizai hated him to the bone. This kind of person was brutal to the bone. He would definitely not kill him immediately. Instead, he would capture him and torture him to death to vent the hatred in his heart. This was one of the reasons. Secondly, Chang Zizai's sword chi was at the low chi high level, while his own sword chi was at the peak of the chi-forming realm. The gap between the two of them was so big that it was impossible to make up for it with sword art. Therefore, in Chang Zizai's eyes, Chu Mu was just an ignorant kid who dared to offend him. Chu Mu wanted Chang Zizai to look down on him so that he would have a chance to fight back. Just as Chu Mu expected, Chang Zizai did not immediately kill him. Instead, he waved his hand, and rays of light blue sword chi shot towards him. Every sword aura was like a sword slashing towards Chu Mu. Its speed was unbelievably fast, making it hard for Chu Mu to dodge. The protective sword chi was like a thin piece of paper. The invisible protective sword chi was instantly torn apart. A few rays of light blue sword chi slashed onto the low-rank inner armor. Finally, they were blocked by the low-rank inner armor and shattered. You even have an inner armor. Chang Zizai was slightly surprised. He then laughed in disdain. But you want to stop me with a mere low-rank inner armor? As soon as he finished speaking, a sword appeared in Chang Zi's hand. The entire sword seemed to have light blue water flowing from the handle of the sword to the tip of the sword. The water also emitted a shocking chill. Extreme rank sword. Frigid water sword. The frigid water sword slashed out twice in the air. The air was filled with a slight white fog. 2 rays of frigid water sword chi shot through the air. Chu Mu's protective sword chi that had just appeared was once again torn apart. Before the invisible protective sword chi could appear, the low-rank inner armor was immediately hit. The sword chi released by a chi high realm sword artist with an extreme rank sword was extremely powerful. It was comparable to a mid-rank sword chi. The low-rank inner armor could not withstand it at all. In a moment it was broken and there were 2 cracks. Even Chu Mu's body was injured. If his body had not been strengthened by the desolate chi and was far stronger than a normal sword artist, Chu Mu would have been killed on the spot by these 2 rays of frigid water sword chi. There were 2 wounds, one on his left arm and the other on his right chest. Fresh blood flowed out and dyed the surrounding clothes red. The corner of Chu Mu's eyes twitched. His face changed slightly because of the pain from the sword chi cutting through his body. You are quite stubborn. Chang Zizai smiled coldly. I want to see how long you can hold on. I hope you can hold on until you die. As he spoke, the tip of the frigid water sword trembled. Rays of frigid water sword chi attacked like a storm. Every ray of frigid water sword chi was only as thick as a toothpick. The goal was not to kill Chu Mu, but to kill him. If he was hit, he would not die, but he would be covered in cuts and bruises. It was obvious that Chang Zizai was evil. At that moment, Chu Mu's body trembled. The wings on his back were broken, and he fell down, causing the countless frigid water sword chi to miss. The sword aura missed, but Chang Zizai wasn't annoyed, because in that instant, he saw that Chu Mu's sword aura had been used up, and he was unable to support the flying secret technique. Because of this, he fell down and escaped the countless sword auras. Chang Zizai gently waved the frigid water sword. Rays of frigid water sword chi broke through the air and poured down like a waterfall, covering Chu Mu. Hundreds of meters in the air, even if a chi transformation realm swordsman fell, it would not be fatal. At most, he would be seriously injured. If he was prepared, he would not even be injured. Chu Mu fell down quickly with his face facing the sky like a meteor. His pupils trembled as if they had become a vortex that swallowed the wind and clouds. Spirit devouring! Chu Mu shouted in his mind. He had finally used a trump card that he had not used until now. At that moment, all the pure spirit chi in the world was mobilized. In just one breath, it swept over 10,000 meters. The pure spirit chi within 10,000 meters gathered like rivers flowing into the sea. The frigid water sword chi that was slashing down from above paused for a moment. Then, it was shattered by this pure spirit chi storm. It returned to pure spirit chi and merged with it, surging toward Chu Mu. Chang Zizai, who was in midair, also felt this terrifying surge of spirit chi. Under the impact of this terrifying spirit chi flow, his body became unstable. He had to increase the output of sword chi to stabilize his body. Because the spirit chi flow was too fast and dense, Chu Mu's body disappeared as if it had been swallowed. An ominous feeling emerged in Chang Zizai's heart. But soon, he suppressed this uneasiness. With his sword chi at the initial chi high level, coupled with an extreme rank sword and an earth rank ancient sword art, even if Chun Fan had any other tricks up his sleeve, he would not be able to defeat him. The pure spirit chi storm instantly entered Chu Mu's body and rushed into his dantian. In a moment, it was all transformed into sword chi. Chu Mu's sword chi cultivation had recovered by more than half in an instant. Then, the sword chi surged and the secret art was performed. The sword chi wings appeared again. His spirit, chi, and soul combined. His body was filled with a boundless aura that contained endless sharpness, Deshang's sword form. The surrounding air suddenly froze. Even the space seemed to be frozen, as if it was being suppressed by an invisible mountain of swords. Chang Zizai's face changed and his eyes widened. He was very familiar with this aura. It was the sword form, Deshang's sword form. How could this be? How could this be? Even he himself was only at the initial stage of sword form. He was not even at the peak of sword form. How could a sword warrior at the peak of chi transformation understand Deshang's sword form? Unbelievable! Genius, this was a real genius, a genius who was close to Jiang Liken. Death, he had to kill him. No matter what, this kind of person could not be allowed to live. Otherwise, he would be a threat to the Chang family in the future. Deshang's sword form, so what? Without enough cultivation, everything is useless. With a roar, Chang Zizai's face was ferocious. He gripped the frigid water sword with both hands and a torrential sword aura surged. Endless waves of water gathered from all directions as the frigid water sword chi within his body surged violently. The combination of the internal and external forces caused the power of the sword to multiply. The Earth-class ancient sword technique was executed. The sword condensed the water vapor of heaven and earth, forming a deep blue giant sword. It slashed down as if it was tearing through the void with astonishing power. Even if the one-eyed man had stabilized his cultivation at the early Chi high realm, he would not be able to withstand this sword attack. The horrifying sword brought with it a horrifying aura. Before the sword arrived, the horrifying aura had already reached Chu Mu's body. It clashed with Deshang's sword form and made a cracking sound. It was as if steel was breaking. This sword attack will kill you. Chu Mu's lips moved slightly. The 35% tearing mentality appeared and combined with Deshang's sword form, making the sword form even sharper. Secret art, sky soaring. The sword chi wings on Chu Mu's back started to change. They shook slightly and Chu Mu shot up into the sky. Secret art, sonic sword. The profound star sword was taken out of its scabbard. Deshang's sword form and tearing mentality mixed with a huge amount of sky origin sword chi and infused it into the profound star sword. Along with the secret art of sonic sword, the sword stabbed out. Hell-breaking sky-shattering sword. Two secret arts, Deshang's sword form, 35% tearing mentality, and an extreme rank sword. Chu Mu did not hold back and used all of his power. The huge dark blue sword slashed through the air and landed on Chu Mu's face. The moment the sword and Chu Mu's stone-shaking power collided with each other, Chu Mu's arms suddenly exploded. A few streams of blood shot out, but it did not affect Chu Mu at all. Between heaven and earth, there was the sound of glass shattering. The huge dark blue sword light paused and then a crack appeared. The crack spread in all directions, and in the blink of an eye, it spread to the huge dark blue sword. Chu Mu's sword broke open the huge dark blue sword and stabbed towards Chang Zizai, who was in the sky. This sword attack was even faster and brighter than a shooting star. It sliced through the sky and became bigger and bigger in Chang Zizai's eyes. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian.com to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 361. Hundreds of meters up in the sky, a brilliance that was even more resplendent than a meteor flashed past. A figure in the sky suddenly trembled. His eyes widened and his eyeballs protruded. He was filled with disbelief and fear. His mouth was wide open, but he couldn't make any sound. With a bang, as if a large amount of explosives had been stuffed into his body, Chang Zizai's body exploded after trembling. He turned into flesh and blood that splashed in all directions, creating a torrential rain. The figure that had shot straight into the sky stopped after rushing up dozens of meters, and then quickly fell down. With a continuous sizzling sound, Chu Mu's body trembled continuously in the air. Small streams of blood shot out like arrows, drawing traces in the air, and splashing in all directions. In the blink of an eye, Chu Mu was covered in blood. Rapidly falling, with a burst of ear-piercing wind, Chu Mu's body fell like a meteor. Falling from hundreds of meters in such a heavily injured state, without any protection, the result was death. In the blink of an eye, Chu Mu fell more than 100 meters. The wind whistled past his ears, and the corner of his eyes seemed to be able to catch a glimpse of a white stream of air rushing into the sky. Tired, very tired, and there was no part of his body that did not hurt. Every muscle seemed to be torn apart, and the slightest movement would cause unbearable pain. But Chu Mu's consciousness was still clear enough. He knew that if he did not do anything, once he really landed, even if he did not die, he would most likely be injured even more. Once he fainted, he would most likely die. Resisting the pain all over his body, Chu Mu used the sword chi wings on his back that were about to dissipate. He gently flapped them, and his falling momentum paused, then slowly circled around like a leaf falling to the ground. The heart of the heaven wasteland transformation was constantly beating, and waves of blood flowed through his body. The remaining ancient heaven wasteland pellet in his dantian was also releasing traces of pure heaven wasteland chi. Wherever the heavenly wasteland chi passed, the injured parts of the body would feel as if a clear stream had washed over them, giving them a sense of comfort. Forcefully enduring the waves of exhaustion that assaulted him until he was about to faint, Chu Mu sat cross-legged on the barren ground. He placed the profound star sword to the side and focused his mind to mobilize the heavenly desolate aura in his dantian, consciously repairing the wounds in his body. The first use of the heaven desolate pill was to treat internal and external injuries. However, Chu Mu had obtained the heaven desolate sword record, so the heaven desolate pill had a second use. Currently, Chu Mu was not cultivating the sky desolation sword physique. Instead, he was using the few remaining ancient sky desolation elixirs in his dantian to heal his internal injuries. As time passed, Chu Mu's injuries slowly healed under the effects of the ancient heaven desolate pill's pure heaven desolate chi. If it wasn't for the remnant of the ancient Tianhuang pill in his body, Chu Mu didn't know how long it would take for him to recover some of his mobility before he could take out the Tianhuang pill from his space bracelet. It should be known that he was holding on with his willpower just now. Being able to control the sword chi wings on his back and sit cross-legged was already his limit. About an hour passed. Although the injuries in his body had not healed, they were no longer as painful as before. An hour also allowed Chu Mu to recover a little. The feeling of fainting had disappeared, but he was still very tired. After recovering his basic mobility, Chu Mu took out the chi recovery elixir and threw it into his mouth to restore the sword chi that was almost exhausted. The ancient heaven desolate pill was still constantly releasing pure heaven desolate chi to heal his injuries. In a flash, another hour passed. Half of his injuries were healed, and some of his mental fatigue had also disappeared. Chu Mu immediately got up. He knew that it would take more time to recover to his peak state. But in this barren land, if he encountered other swordsmen, they might be tempted to attack him. With his current state, perhaps a swordsman in the great perfection of Qi transformation would be enough for him. After getting up, Chu Mu glanced around and fixed his eyes on the cold water sword stuck in the hard ground hundreds of meters away and the space bracelet dozens of meters away from the cold water sword. These were all Chang Zizai's things, but now they were Chu Mu's trophies. Quickly putting away the cold water sword and Chang Zizai's low-grade space bracelet, Chu Mu immediately performed the flashing wind shadow movement and quickly headed in the direction of the mining area. He held a mid-grade spirit stone in each hand. The Heaven Origin Sword Qi was slowly moving, constantly absorbing the pure spirit Qi within the spirit stone to restore his Heaven Origin Sword Qi. The ancient Heaven Desolate pellet was also automatically releasing pure Heaven Desolate Qi to heal his injuries. He believed that by the time he returned to the mining area, his injuries would have recovered a little. The flashing wind shadow movement was an advanced movement technique. Its speed was indeed not as fast as a transcendent movement technique, nor was it as fast as the heaven-traversing secret art. However, its advantage was that it consumed very little sword qi, and the burden on the body was also very small, almost negligible. It was just right for Chu Mu to perform at the moment. As he hurried, Chu Mu recalled the battle between him and Chang Zizai. It was an extremely unfair battle. It was a battle with a great disparity in strength, but in the end Chu Mu won, and Chang Zizai did not even have a corpse left. It had to be said that Chu Mu's victory in the end was 30% due to luck and 70% due to strength. 30% was due to Chang Zizai's underestimation of Chu Mu. If Chang Zizai had used his Earth Realm ancient sword art right from the start, Chu Mu would have been killed by his sword. Unfortunately, Chang Zizai was a cruel person. While he underestimated Chu Mu, he also wanted to torture Chu Mu to vent his anger after being offended twice before killing Chu Mu. This gave Chu Mu the perfect opportunity. Of course, 30% was still just luck. If Chu Mu did not have enough trump cards and power, he would not have been able to kill Chang Zizai even if he was extremely lucky. He would have died under Chang Zizai's sword in the end, and everything would have become Chang Zizai's. The spirit-devouring great art, the Deshang sword form, the ripping mentality, the stone-shaking power, the extreme rank profound sword, the first and second stage of the heaven-traversing secret art, the sonic sword art, and many more. The heaven-traversing secret art allowed Chu Mu's speed to reach the extreme in one breath. It was close to the speed of sound, and even a Qi High Realm sword artist would have a hard time catching up to him. As for the sonic sword art, as the name suggested, it was a sword that could reach the speed of sound. Although many sword artists seemed to be very fast and were often described as fast as lightning, but in reality, their speed was far from reaching the speed of sound, let alone the speed of lightning. It was just that people's vision and reaction would not be able to catch up to the speed of sound, so it was described as lightning. Even a Qi High Realm sword artist would have a hard time swinging a sword that was close to the speed of sound, let alone a real sonic sword art. In fact, Chu Mu knew that his sonic sword art was only at the beginning stage. Therefore, the speed of his sword was not close to the speed of sound, but rather close. However, close to the speed of sound and reaching the speed of sound were two completely different levels. If Chu Mu's sword had really reached the speed of sound, then he would not have been able to kill Chang Zizai. His body would not have been able to withstand the pressure of the air and would have exploded before he could kill Chang Zizai. It had to be said that this was actually a kind of luck. Approaching Chang Zizai with a speed that was close to the speed of sound, and then swinging a sword that was close to the speed of sound, combined with the space-shattering blade and the minor success of the seismic stone art, it was so terrifying that Chang Zizai could not resist it. This kind of sword could even threaten a Qi High Realm sword artist like Deshang, and Chu Mu's cultivation was only at the peak of the Qi transformation realm. Thinking about it, if Chu Mu's sword Qi had reached the Qi high realm, then even a Qi high realm sword artist like Deshang would not be able to survive under this sword. The price was also huge, and that was the burden on the body. If it was not for the desolate Qi that strengthened the body, Chu Mu might have exploded and died. Everything is linked, and not a single one can be missing, Chu Mu said to himself, as if everything was predestined. If he did not enter the desolate city, then he would not have offended Chang Zizai. Similarly, if he did not enter the desolate city, then his sword force would not have been able to break through to the Deshang realm in such a short period of time. Everything was so unpredictable. Although sword force and sword intent do not rely on sword Qi, without sword Qi, there is still a lack of support, and it will be difficult to fully unleash the power. As for secret techniques, they cannot be separated from sword Qi. In the end, sword Qi cultivation is the foundation. The difference between my cultivation and Chang Zizai's is too big. Fortunately, I have the spirit-devouring technique. Otherwise, no matter how many secret techniques I have in this battle, I will still die. The spirit-devouring technique was an ability that evolved from Chu Mu's sword Qi. It was similar to a talent ability. When he broke through from the half-step Qi transformation realm to the Qi transformation realm, his sword Qi disappeared and was replaced by the spirit-devouring technique. The spirit-devouring technique only had one use, and that was to instantly recover his sword Qi. As long as one was in a place where there was spiritual Qi and it was not so thin that it was difficult to sense, once one performed the spirit-devouring great skill, one would be able to instantly absorb all the spiritual Qi within a radius of 10,000 meters and convert it into one's own sword Qi. As for the degree of recovery, it depended on the environment. The denser the spirit Qi, the more it could be recovered. For example, he had recovered more than half of it just now, but it was all consumed when he used the secret technique. This was the first time Chu Mu had used the spirit-devouring great technique in battle. He also knew that after using it, he couldn't use it a second time in a short period of time. This time interval was about 24 hours. As for why, he did not know. In short, the spirit-devouring technique that could only be used once every 24 hours was one of his trump cards. Chu Mu would not use it unless he had no other choice. In any case, Chu Mu had killed Chang Zizai. Although he was seriously injured, he had also obtained a lot of good things. What Chu Mu cared about was Chang Zizai's sword. It was able to communicate with the spirit Qi of heaven and earth, and was extremely powerful. Such a method was not something that the Qi transformation realm could compare with. Breaking through from the sword Qi realm to the Qi transformation realm required one to communicate with the outside world. From there, one could absorb spirit Qi from the outside world into the body and refine it into sword Qi to increase and recover one's cultivation. In the Qi realm, one would be able to increase one's foundation and use the spirit Qi of heaven and earth to strengthen one's attacks during battle. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qi.com to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 362. A top-grade sword, cold water sword, 3 low-grade silver spirit stone cards, 7 low-grade bronze spirit stone cards, a gourd of Qi-fusing pills, a gourd of blood-forming pills, a gourd of mid-grade Tianhuang pills, 120 mid-grade spirit stones, and some miscellaneous items. The miscellaneous items were useless, so Chu Mu threw them all away. The rest of the items were all sorted. The spirit stones and pills were stored in the mid-grade space wristband, while the spirit stone cards and the top-grade sword were stored in the upper-grade space wristband. These items were the spoils of war obtained after killing Chang Zizai. They were all the materials that Chang Zizai had brought with him. The Qi-fusing pill was a pill of a higher grade than the Qi-returning pill. It was also used to recover sword Qi. It was suitable for the Qi high realm, but some Qi transformation realm swordsmen could also take it. Chu Mu had returned to the cave residence in the desolate mining area for 2 days. His essence, qi, and spirit had all recovered to the peak. His injured body had also recovered under the pure Tianhuang qi of the ancient Tianhuang pill. The price was that he had consumed a small part of the ancient Tianhuang pill in his dantian. In these 2 days, Chu Mu did not practice much. He mainly used it to heal his injuries and recall. He recalled the sword move that killed Chang Zizai and carefully analyzed it over and over again. That day, he was able to use it because of the great pressure. If it was another environment, Chu Mu might not be able to integrate the minor success of the seismic stone force into the sky-breaking sword to increase its power. If I can integrate the seismic stone force into every sword move, even the power of an ordinary attack will increase by several times. Chu Mu secretly said, a strange light flashing in his eyes. Unfortunately, every time the seismic stone force was used, it would put a burden on the body. Maybe it was not a big deal to use it once, twice or thrice, but once it was used repeatedly, the burden would continue to stack and eventually the body would be injured. Thinking of this, Chu Mu suddenly had another idea in his mind. If I can integrate the sword force into every sword move and use it at will, thinking of this, Chu Mu couldn't help but shudder. Sword force was a sign that a swordsman had stepped into the path of the sword. Although it was only a sign of the path of the sword, its power was extremely terrifying. If the sword force was infused into every strike, it was equivalent to using the sword force as an ordinary technique and not a trump card. Just think about it, De Shang's sword aura was terrifying. The prison-breaking sword could easily kill enemies of a higher level. If it could be integrated into every sword attack, it would mean that every sword attack was prison-breaking. If he added the lacerating concept into it, then every sword strike would be a space-breaking sword strike. Chu Mu couldn't help but shake his head, thinking that he was indulging in fantasy. Every time he used a sword move, it would obviously consume his essence, energy, and spirit. So, how could he possibly incorporate the effects of a sword move into every single sword move? This was obviously an unrealistic idea. Chu Mu only thought about it for a moment before throwing it away and focusing on other aspects. Desolate City, Chang clan's main hall. Did you find out? The leader of the Chang family sat at the head of the table, his face stern. To the Chang family, the Qi High swordsmen were the main force. Losing one of them would be a loss. Plus, Chang Zizai was a member of the Chang family. Even if he was a trash, he was still a member of the Chang family. A member of the Chang family could not die without knowing why. Leader, I have found out everything. One of the people below had a strange look on his face, but he still reported everything he had found out. Qi transforming peak? Not only the leader of the Chang family, even the elders around him were shocked. They couldn't believe that a Qi transforming peak swordsman could kill a Qi high swordsman. Unless Chang Zizai was an idiot who just stood there and let that Qi transformation realm sword warrior kill him, no matter how one thought about it, a Qi transformation realm sword warrior would not be able to kill a Qi transformation realm sword warrior. Even Jiang Liken could not do it when he was at the Qi transformation realm. Who was Jiang Liken? He was one of the 81 sword heroes in the Great Kuan dynasty. It wasn't just a title, it was a symbol of strength. Even he was unable to accomplish this all those years ago. Could it be that a perfection stage Qi transformation sword cultivator that appeared out of nowhere could accomplish this? But according to the results of the investigation, Chang Zizai's death had a lot to do with the Qi transforming peak swordsman. Did you find out who that Qi transforming peak swordsman is? The leader of the Chang family asked with a tone that made people tremble. Leader, we found out. His name is Chu Mu. He is ranked 100 on the bronze sword ranking of the Great Kuan Sword Palace. He is currently on a voluntary mission to guard the mining area. He is currently in the mining area. The leader of the scouts immediately reported, "This person is the one who killed the 4 evils of the 5 evils not long ago." Chu Mu, Great Kuan Sword Palace's copper sword ranking disciple. Chong family's family head and Chong family's elders all creased their brows. If this Qi transforming peak stage sword expert was a disciple from some family or sect, it would be fine. However, a Great Kuan Sword Palace's copper sword ranking disciple was troublesome. Every bronze sword ranking student was a precious resource of the Sword Palace. Once they died, the Sword Palace would definitely investigate and find out the cause and the murderer. Especially when the student was on a mission. Once the Chong family decided to kill Chu Mu, the Great Kuan Sword Palace would definitely investigate once Chu Mu died. With the Great Kuan Sword Palace's ability, it wouldn't be difficult to find out that it was the Chong family who did it. By then, even the Jiang family wouldn't be able to protect the Chong family. If they knew that the Great Kuan Sword Palace had already listed Chu Mu on the death list of the Heaven Wasteland Earth Palace, they wouldn't have such concerns. They would directly send powerful swordsmen to the mining area to capture Chu Mu and bring him back to the Chong family for interrogation. You can leave first. The master of the Chong family waved his hand to dismiss the captain of the scouts. The captain of the scouts heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly left the meeting hall after performing a sword salute. Only the master of the Chong family and the elders of the Chong family were left. Patriarch, did my son die in vain? The elder who was ranked 7th suddenly stood up and said angrily. He was Chong Zizai's father, Chong Kuan. The pain of losing his son made him disregard the dignity of the master of the Chong family and directly questioned. 7th Elder, I know you are in pain of losing your son. However, this Chu Mu is a student on the bronze sword ranking of the Great Kuan Sword Palace. He is currently on a mission for the Sword Palace. You should know what this means. The elder who was ranked 3rd also stood up and said unhurriedly. 3rd Elder is right. Moreover, from what we have found out, Zizai's death is only related to Chu Mu. It is not necessarily Chu Mu's doing. Even the student ranked 1st on the bronze sword ranking can't kill a sword artist at the initial stage of the Sea of Qi realm, let alone a student ranked 100. The 4th Elder added. Humph, the one who died was not your son. The 7th Elder was even more furious, but he did not lose his mind. Great Elder, what do you think about this? The master of the Chong family coldly glanced at the 7th Elder. That kind of glare made the 7th Elder's body tremble, and half of his anger dissipated. Zizai's death is definitely related to Chu Mu. The culprit should be someone else. The Great Elder, who had his eyes closed, did not open his eyes. He said unhurriedly, we can continue to investigate this point. Once we find the culprit, if it is not a force that our Chong family cannot afford to offend, we will kill them all. As for Chu Mu, he can escape death, but he cannot escape punishment. Since he is a student of the Sword Palace, let the students of the Sword Palace deal with him. As soon as the Great Elder finished speaking, the eyes of the master of the Chong family and the other elders suddenly lit up. Great Elder, you mean to let Chen and the others deal with Chu Mu? The master of the Chong family asked tentatively. Then his eyes lit up and he actually clapped his hands and nodded in agreement. That's right. Chen and the others are also students of the Sword Palace. Moreover, they are students of the King's Palace. As long as this Chu Mu is not dead, he will enter the King's Palace sooner or later. At that time, we will let Chen and the others deal with him. That's right. The Great Elder nodded with his eyes still closed. That's good. We still have to continue investigating. As for this Chu Mu, we will let Chen and the others deal with him. The master of the Chong family sneered and looked at the 7th Elder. 7th Elder, are you satisfied with the result? The 7th Elder's face was gloomy. His lips moved before he cupped his hands at the master of the Chong family. He did not say a word. His expressionless face did not reveal anything, but in fact, he had his own thoughts. The meeting of the Chong family ended and the elders dispersed. At night, a black figure silently snuck out from a room. He carefully avoided the patrolling guards of the Chang family. His tight black clothes made him seem like he was one with the night. Moreover, his aura was so restrained that no one could detect him. He avoided wave after wave of patrolling guards. It had to be said that the security of the Chang family was very tight. In the past, he would have been very proud of that. However, now he felt very helpless and even a little impatient. However, the black figure knew that he had to be patient. Once the Chang family left the border city, there would be no need for him to hide. Finally, after avoiding the patrolling guards, the black figure finally arrived at the backyard of the Chang family. As long as he leaped out of the backyard, he would be able to leave the Chang family. At that time, he would be able to quickly leave the border city. Seventh Elder, you really came out. A soft sigh rang out, causing the figure who was about to leap out of the backyard to tremble. He stopped on the wall of the backyard and turned around to see another figure appear on the wall. Fourth Elder, Zai is my only son. The black figure said word by word, containing a deep hatred. Seventh Elder, I understand your feelings and I understand your anger. However, you have to put the family first. The fourth elder said sincerely. Fourth Elder, are you sure you want to stop me? The seventh elder did not listen to the fourth elder. Seventh Elder, why do you have to do this? Another voice rang out, coming from another direction. It was the second elder and the fifth elder. During the meeting during the day, the Master already saw through your intentions. Although we also want to help, we have to put the family first. The second elder slowly persuaded. The seventh elder was angry and unwilling. He was surrounded by 3 elders, especially when all 3 of them were stronger than him. He could not just leave like this. So, what should he do? To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 363. Chu Mu did not know about the Chang clan's plan. Otherwise, he would be in danger under the rage of the 7th elder of the Chang clan. In the blink of an eye, another few days passed. Chu Mu finally completed the transformation of the organs that were close to the transformation of Heaven Wasteland. At this point, including his heart, Chu Mu had completed the transformation of 4 organs. I took a high-grade Heaven Wasteland elixir to complete the transformation of the remaining organs. It seems that the pure desolate chi of 10 high-grade Heaven Wasteland elixirs is comparable to that of an ancient Heaven Wasteland elixir, Chu Mu thought. In terms of quantity, an ancient Heaven Wasteland elixir was equivalent to a high-grade Heaven Wasteland elixir. However, the ancient Heaven Wasteland elixir contained pure desolate chi, while the high-grade Heaven Wasteland elixir contained pure desolate chi. There was a clear difference. Thinking about it, only the Heaven Wasteland elixir, refined from a king-grade Heaven Wasteland elixir, could be comparable to the ancient Heaven Wasteland elixir. It seems that these Heaven Wasteland elixirs are not enough for me, Chu Mu thought and took out another Heaven Wasteland elixir to cultivate. Because he had been staying in the cave, Chu Mu had been wearing the spirit-devouring pearl to constantly absorb the surrounding spiritual qi. His sword qi cultivation had also gradually increased as he cultivated. 10 low-grade Heaven Wasteland elixirs were equivalent to a mid-grade Heaven Wasteland elixir, 10 mid-grade Heaven Wasteland elixir were equivalent to a high-grade Heaven Wasteland elixir, and 10 high-grade Heaven Wasteland elixir were equivalent to an ancient Heaven Wasteland elixir. To complete the transformation of an organ, it would take half an ancient Heaven Wasteland elixir, which was 5 high-grade Heaven Wasteland elixirs, 50 mid-grade Heaven Wasteland elixirs, and 500 low-grade Heaven Wasteland elixirs. With this calculation, Chu Mu knew that the Heaven Wasteland elixirs he had purchased from the Heaven Elixir Pavilion in Border City were not enough. Chu Mu was currently cultivating with middle and high-grade Heaven Wasteland pills, while keeping low-grade Heaven Wasteland pills and ancient Heaven Wasteland pills. Because the low-grade Heaven Desolate pill contained less desolate chi, one would often need to consume a lot of it for cultivation. However, the ancient heaven-desolate pill was the opposite. Chu Mu planned to consume it at a critical moment, as it might have unexpected effects. Looks like I still need to make a trip to Border City. Time passed slowly, day by day. His heavenly origin sword chi gradually deepened with his cultivation, and he was not far from the peak of the chi transformation realm. The heavenly wasteland transformation of his 5 viscera and 6 viscera was also improving. Now, in addition to the original 4 viscera, 3 more had completed the heavenly wasteland transformation, and the 8th was half completed. Chu Mu didn't know if it was because he had entered the underground palace, but ever since he had left the underground palace, the efficiency of comprehending the concept of tearing had obviously increased. It had reached 36%, and he was getting closer and closer to the small success stage. The stone shaking power had also improved on the basis of the small success stage. Deshang's sword aura had become more stable, and Chu Mu's overall strength had improved a little compared to when he had killed Chang Zizai. During this time, Chu Mu took some time to go to Border City again, and directly entered the Heaven Pill Pavilion on the 5th floor of the Earth Wasteland building. The person who welcomed him was still the middle-aged scholar, Deacon Su. The two chatted for a while, and Chu Mu also found out that Master Hong had been summoned back to the Heaven Pill Pavilion because he had broken through to the Alchemy Grandmaster level. He had left a message that if Chu Mu ever came to East Saint City, he had to go to the Heaven Pill Pavilion to find him. After that, Chu Mu left a silver low-grade spirit stone card as a deposit. He would come back to the Heaven Pill Pavilion to buy Heaven Desolate pills within a year, mainly mid- and upper-grade pills, the more the better. Unknowingly, it had been almost half a year since Chu Mu had arrived at the border mining area. In 2 more days, Chu Mu would have to leave the border mining area, because his guarding duty was about to end. After completing the cultivation of the Heaven Origin Sword Chi and Sword Arts, Chu Mu's heart was moved. He walked out of the cave and headed towards the Spirit Stone Mine. The sword guard who had given Chu Mu the handwritten record of the Spirit Eater Beast had also received Chu Mu's reward, Sword Arts Guidance. "Sir, you have come." The sword guard who had received Chu Mu's guidance, Zhou Ji, happened to be on duty today. When he saw Chu Mu, he immediately saluted with his sword respectfully. Because of Chu Mu's guidance, he had benefited a lot from Chu Mu's guidance. His sword arts had improved a lot, and those sword guards who used to have similar strength as him were now no match for him. Chu Mu smiled and walked into the entrance of the mine under Zhou Ji's respect. This made the other sword guard very envious. He knew that Chu Mu had killed Yan Kaming with 1 sword strike, which was enough to show that Chu Mu was very powerful. If he could also receive some guidance, his sword arts would definitely improve a lot. Unfortunately, there were no ifs. Everything was about luck, and forcing it would only make Chu Mu unhappy. The mine was crisscrossed with each other. Chu Mu did not take the usual route, as all the passages were marked. Moreover, with his powerful memory, he could easily remember the route he had taken and not get lost. This mining area had been mined for a long time, and the spirit stones above were basically all extracted. Only the bottom was left. After walking for about a quarter of an hour, Chu Mu finally heard the tinkling sounds of mining hoes hammering on the rock walls. Gradually, he saw the shadows of people reflected on the walls. Chu Mu didn't pay attention to them and continued to walk forward. No one paid attention to him either. As he walked, he continued to go deeper and deeper. Gradually, there were no more people mining and the light in the cave became dim. However, this dimness couldn't obstruct Chu Mu's eyes at all. Everything was as bright as day in his eyes. Gradually, he could no longer hear the sound of mining hoes digging into the stone walls. It was as if he had entered an independent world. Going into the depths of the mine without a partner was a very dangerous thing to do. There was a chance of encountering danger, but Chu Mu was brave and extremely vigilant. Nothing in the surroundings could escape his senses. The moment there was danger, his speed sky sword would be unsheathed to kill. In terms of power, the Velocity's sword was not as powerful as the Earth Essence sword, but in terms of speed, it was much faster. It was very suitable for instant counterattacks. As he walked, Chu Mu walked into a seemingly dead-end cave. There didn't seem to be any more passageways. This cave had also been excavated by miners. Perhaps because there weren't any spirit stones, they had given up. Chu Mu's eyes flashed as he slowly scanned the cave. He found some finger-sized holes in the corner. There seemed to be some mystery behind them. His body flashed and Chu Mu appeared in front of the wall. He looked carefully and found that the finger-sized holes were holes. After thinking for a bit, Chu Mu retreated a bit and gently pointed with his left hand. The Heaven Essence sword chi shot out. Suddenly, there was a shattering sound. The hole-filled wall was very fragile under the Heaven Essence sword chi. It was directly broken, revealing the space behind it. Looking through the head-sized hole, Chu Mu carefully scanned the wall. It did not seem to be the work of mining hoes. Chu Mu's mind flashed. He shot out a few more Heaven Essence sword chi to enlarge the hole. His body flashed and he turned into a gust of wind as he entered the cave on the other side. There was another passage in the cave. He did not know where it led. It was pitch black without any light. The shape of the passage was completely different from the one above. It was an irregular circle and was only about 2 meters high. There were also some small marks on the wall. Chu Mu was even more certain that there was a spirit-eating beast here. After guarding the mine for nearly half a year, Chu Mu had done a lot of research on spirit-eating beasts. Looking at the 2-meter-high passage, Chu Mu knew that the spirit-eating beast that lived here must be very large. Could it be a super spirit-eating beast? Chu Mu could not help but secretly think. The high-level spirit-eating beast that he had killed before was only about 1 meter tall. It was impossible for it to make a 2-meter-high passage. There was also no need for it to do so. Therefore, a 2-meter-high passage must have been made by a 2-meter-tall spirit-eating beast. The high-level spirit-eating bead of a high-level spirit-eating beast had amazing effect. If it was a super spirit-eating beast, it would be even more amazing. Moreover, the price of the spirit-eating bead was extremely shocking. Just the high-level spirit-eating bead that he had on him could be sold for 2 million low-grade spirit stones. After all, the spirit-eating bead was too rare. After mining an entire spirit stone vein, it was still a problem whether or not one could obtain a spirit-eating beast. Usually, small spirit stone veins would not have spirit-eating beasts. At the very least, a medium-sized spirit stone vein would be needed. It was one thing to have a spirit-eating beast, but it was another thing to be able to find one. If one could find one, it would usually be a low-level spirit-eating beast. If one was lucky, one could find a middle-level spirit-eating beast. As for high-level spirit-eating beasts and super spirit-eating beasts, it was not a matter of luck. Sometimes it might not be a good thing to encounter one. Spirit-eating beasts were not easy to deal with. In addition, although the spirit-eating bead had some restrictions on the level of sword chi, the restrictions were very wide. The limit of a low-level spirit-eating bead was to increase the training speed of a sword practitioner in the sword chi realm. The limit of a mid-level spirit-eating bead was to increase the training speed of a sword practitioner in the chi transformation realm. The limit of a high-level spirit-eating bead was to increase the training speed of a sword practitioner in the chi high realm. The limit of a super spirit-eating bead was to increase the training speed of a sword practitioner in the 9th transformation realm. For some sword practitioners in the chi high realm, 2 million low-grade spirit stones was not a small amount, but it was not something that they could not afford. Who would be willing to use it to buy a high-level spirit-eating bead that could increase their training speed? After all, for sword practitioners in the chi high realm, low-grade spirit stones could no longer help them in their training. If it really is a super spirit-eating beast, then with my current attack power, I should be able to kill it. The effect of a super spirit-eating bead is much stronger than a high-level spirit-eating bead. Even a sword practitioner in the origin realm would be jealous of it. Chu Mu thought to himself. He could not help but feel excited. Staring at the pitch-black tunnel, Chu Mu raised his perception to the limit to guard against any attack. Chu Mu took a step forward and walked into the pitch-black tunnel. The tunnel was 2 meters high and 2 meters wide. There were obvious signs of friction on all sides. Chu Mu could imagine a huge spirit-eating beast using its strong body to carve out this tunnel. Those signs were obviously caused by the rough shell of the spirit-eating beast. With his eyes shining, Chu Mu could clearly see his surroundings and what was in front of him. He kept going deeper and deeper. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidien.com to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 364. This tunnel was completely dug out by the spirit-eating beast, without any trace of human activity, and gradually went down. Because there was no light source, it was very dark. Even Chu Mu's vision was somewhat affected. He looked like an ordinary person in the evening, which made him even more alert. Although the tunnel was not small, it was full of twists and turns. If it were not for Chu Mu's amazing memory, he would have already forgotten the way back. After about half an hour, Chu Mu suddenly had a strange feeling. His goal was not far away. He was in high spirits and restrained his aura. The spirit-eating beast was very sensitive to aura fluctuations. Chu Mu continued to walk forward. Suddenly, Chu Mu's heart skipped a beat. His body swayed, relying on the instincts he had honed from countless life and death battles. He stuck close to the tunnel wall. In the next moment, a human head-sized ball of crazily spinning spirit energy flew past, bringing with it a strong whistling sound that was extremely ear-piercing. The spirit chi ball missed and hit the wall of the tunnel a dozen meters away. It immediately exploded, sending broken stones flying and making a sharp sound in the air. The power was so strong that it made Chu Mu's scalp go numb. It vaguely had a power beyond the peak of the chi transformation realm. Just ahead, silently saying in his heart, Chu Mu immediately used Phantom Step. Layer upon layer of phantoms appeared alternately in the tunnel, quickly moving forward. A huge figure like a small hill appeared in front of him. It was a huge cave, which was the habitat of the spirit-eating beast. The huge spirit-eating beast opened its mouth, and pure spirit chi once again gathered in its mouth and spun at a high speed. It immediately shot out like a cannonball at Chu Mu. However, Chu Mu quickly dodged it. In the blink of an eye, he had crossed dozens of meters. He unsheathed his rapid sky sword, which was like a meteor streaking across the sky. The tearing mentality and heaven origin sword chi were condensed, and a dark golden luster flowed. The spirit eater's body was too big for it to move freely, and Chu Mu's sword was too fast for it to dodge. With a clanging sound, countless sparks flew in all directions, like fireworks blooming in the darkness, incomparably bright. Chu Mu only felt a rebounding force pass through the sword and into his palm. Using the force dissipation technique, he immediately dissipated the rebounding force. His footsteps shifted, and his silhouettes appeared one after another as he repeatedly slashed out with the speed void sword. Ear-piercing clanging sounds rang out one after another. The sparks in the darkness were as resplendent as the fireworks in the summer night sky. It was as if there was a festival going on, one after another. Waves of rebounding force kept assaulting him, but they were all neutralized by Chu Mu. The spirit-eater beast let out a strange and sharp roar as it fiercely swung its steel whip-like tail, stirring up a terrifying whistling wind. With a bang, it smashed into the ground, instantly causing the ground to shatter and the soil to splatter like darts. The spirit-eater beast's body was too big, and its reaction was very slow. Only its steel whip-like tail could pose a slight threat to Chu Mu. Chu Mu's body was extremely agile, and with full concentration, he easily dodged the whipping of the spirit-eater beast's tail and counterattacked. With the Earth Yuan sword in his hand, he continuously attacked with both swords. Chu discovered that even with the Earth Yuan Sword's ability to increase the Yuan Sword Chi's power by 30%, and with the Sky Yuan Sword Chi mixed with the ripping mentality, it still could not cause any damage to this giant Spirit Eater beast. Could it really be a Super Spirit Eater beast? Chu thought to himself. A Super Spirit Eater beast's attacking power was comparable to a Peak Chi Transformation Realm Sword Artist, and it also had a powerful defensive power that could block the attacks of a Chi Si Realm Sword Artist. At this time, Chu-Mu's Sky Yuan Sword Chi had reached the 8th revolution, and it was even purer than a normal Peak Chi Transformation Realm Sword Artist. The 36% ripping mentality was even more powerful. Under the combination of the two, a normal Peak Chi Transformation Realm Sword Artist would not be able to block it. While attacking, he thought back to the high-level Spirit Eater beast that he had killed before. In terms of size, that high-level Spirit Eater beast was only half the size of this one. Chu was not sure if this was a Super Spirit Eater beast, but no matter what, it was much more powerful than a high-level Spirit Eater beast. Thinking of this, Chu used his power, and in an instant, his spirit, chi, and soul merged into one. It was like a sword mountain had descended, and the terrifying aura caused the surrounding air to freeze. The giant Spirit Eater beast's body suddenly stopped, as if it had been frozen by the void. Deshang's sword aura, 36% ripping mentality, broken prison space, shattering sword. This sword was as bright as a meteor that tore through the darkness and descended onto the earth. A terrifying sharp sound was heard, and it was the sound of the frozen air being broken. It formed a sound wave that kept echoing in the tunnel, and it was deafening. This sword attack had reached a level where it could severely injure or even kill a Chi Si Realm Sword Artist. Chu also hoped that this sword attack would be able to break the hard shell of the Spirit Eater beast and severely injure it. With a loud sound, Chu felt as if his ears had been pierced by invisible sharp swords. The bright sparks in front of his eyes stimulated him so much that he had no choice but to close his eyes. An extremely powerful rebound force passed through the Earth Essence sword, causing the Earth Essence sword to vibrate at a high frequency until it reached his palm. His palm was numb, and the force dissipation technique could only dissipate part of the rebound force. Chu had no choice but to let go of the Earth Essence sword and let it bounce in his palm for 3 breaths. At the same time, because of the rebound force, Chu had no choice but to fly back a few meters. Opening his eyes, Chu was suddenly startled. The shell of the Spirit Eater beast that had been hit by the broken prison space shattering sword was only slightly damaged, and it had recovered in the blink of an eye. Is it not a Super Spirit Eater beast? Chu was surprised. A Super Spirit Eater beast's defense could withstand the attack of a Chi High Realm Sword Artist, but Chu-Mu's broken prison space shattering sword was enough to threaten a Chi High Realm Sword Artist, but it had only slightly damaged the shell of this giant Spirit Eater beast. Chu couldn't help but think of a legend that he had heard of. An adult Spirit Eater beast, no matter if it was a high or Super Spirit Eater beast, was at the level of a Chi Transformation Realm Sword Artist. But there was an even stronger Spirit Eater beast, and that was the Spirit Eater Beast King. A normal Spirit Eater Beast King had the attack power of a Chi High Realm Sword Artist, and it had the strong defense power of a Chi High Realm Sword Artist. Unless the attack power was higher than a Chi High Realm Sword Artist's, it would be impossible to severely injure or kill a Spirit Eater Beast King with one strike. The recovery ability of a Spirit Eater Beast King was many times stronger than a high Spirit Eater Beast King. If one was unable to severely injure or kill it with one strike, and only managed to break its shell, the shell of the Spirit Eater Beast King would be able to recover in one breath. Thinking of this, Chu felt that this giant Spirit Eater beast was most likely the Spirit Eater Beast King. As for its attack power, it didn't seem to have reached the level of a Chi High Realm Sword Artist. But thinking about it carefully, the attack power of the Spirit Chi bullets had already surpassed the level of a normal Peak Chi Transformation Realm Sword Artist. Could it be that this giant spirit-eater beast had just become the spirit-eater beast king not long ago? Chumu was right about this. This spirit-eater beast was the super spirit-eater beast that was hunted down 30 years ago. After 30 years of eating spirit stones, it finally broke through the ranks of the super spirit-eater beasts and became the spirit-eater beast king. But it had just become the spirit-eater beast king not long ago. Just like the one-eyed dragon, it was not stable enough. Therefore, the attack power of the spirit chi bullets was only at the level of a chi high realm warrior. In another 10 or 20 years, the attack power of the spirit-eater beast king's spirit chi bullets would definitely reach the level of a chi high realm warrior. Its defense would also be much stronger. At this moment, the spirit-eater beast king couldn't do anything to Chumu, and Chumu also couldn't do anything to the spirit-eater beast king. Could it be that I have to use the sonic speed sword and the sinking star sword again? Chumu thought to himself. During this time, a few of his organs had completed the heavenly desolation transformation, but it didn't significantly improve his body. Once he used the sonic speed sword, Chumu's meridians and muscles would be injured again, and he would need to spend more time to recover. Thinking of this, Chumu's heart skipped a beat, and an ominous feeling emerged from the bottom of his heart. He saw the spirit-eater beast king's body constantly squirming, and waves of firecrackers exploded from its body. This meant that the spirit-eater beast king's body was undergoing some kind of change. Seeing this, Chumu was shocked. It was said that when the spirit-eater beast was angered, it would become extremely terrifying. Through Chumu's research, he knew that once the spirit-eater beast was angered, it would change its form. Originally, the spirit-eater beast was good at defense and recovery, and its attack and speed were secondary. But when the spirit-eater beast was angered and changed its form, its defense and recovery became secondary, and its attack and speed became the main focus. Once the spirit-eater beast king was angered and changed its form, regardless of how much its defense and recovery would drop, just its attack and speed of a low chi high warrior was enough to make Chumu's scalp go numb. I have to kill it now. Otherwise, once it finishes changing its form, I will be in danger. In this critical situation, Chumu took out the sinking star sword without hesitation. Just as he was about to use the sonic speed sword to kill Changzhizai, an idea suddenly flashed through his mind. The sonic speed sword was stabbed into the hard ground. A small dark red sword appeared in Chumu's left hand. He poured his Sky Origin sword chi and 36% of his ripping mentality into the sword. With a swing of his hand, the sword turned into a dark golden light and shot out like lightning. At this moment, the spirit-eater beast king's thick and short legs were rapidly lengthening. Its huge body looked like it was about to stand up like a human. Sounds of explosions came out from its body, and a terrifying aura spread out, forming many small cyclones. The dark golden light shot towards the spirit-eater beast king like lightning. Its hard shell was like tofu, and with a clanging sound, the small dark red sword pierced through the spirit-eater beast king's hard shell and went straight into its body. In the next moment, the spirit-eater beast king's body started to shake violently, and it let out a sharp cry. Chumu saw that the spirit-eater beast king's body was quickly drying up, and all of its blood was being absorbed by the small dark red sword. Letting out a breath, Chumu did not let down his guard. He stared at the spirit-eater beast king with all of his attention, and the shrill cries of the spirit-eater beast king kept echoing in his ears. Chumu could not help but be amazed. The spirit-eater beast king's blood was extremely rich, 10 times more than the one-eyed dragon's. The small dark red sword had used 30 breaths of time to absorb all of its blood. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidien.com to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 365. Finally gone. Vice Commander Wu Ye looked up at the sky and muttered in a voice that only he could hear. A red-crowned crane was flying in the sky, flapping its wings at an extremely fast speed. Against the countless streams of air, It quickly left the mining area and headed towards the Black Dragon Mountain, where the Great Kuan Void Realm was located. The half-year period of being ranked on the Bronze Sword roll had ended. What Chu Mu did not know was that he had already been included in the death list for the trip to the Heaven Wasteland Palace. However, the elders did not take all of the red-crowned cranes away. Otherwise, it would be troublesome for Chu Mu to return. The heavenly origin sword chi circulated within his body and was released outside his body to form a protective sword chi. It blocked off the powerful air currents caused by the red-crowned cranes flying at high speed and was unable to form any obstruction to his body. Chu Mu sat steadily on the back of the red-crowned crane. His eyes flashed as he looked at the small dark red sword in his hand. He could faintly see two characters on the blade of the small dark red sword. Two extremely ancient characters. After staring at it for a long time, Chu Mu was certain that he could not recognize the two characters. On one hand, he had never learned such characters. On the other hand, the two characters were faintly discernible and were difficult to see clearly. As he looked, Chu Mu suddenly took out the Heaven Wasteland sword token. There were also two extremely ancient characters on it that he could not recognize. Looking here and there, Chu Mu felt that the two characters on the Heaven Wasteland sword token that he could not recognize were similar to the two characters on the small dark red sword. Perhaps they are characters from the same time period, Chu Mu thought to himself. Thinking of this, Chu Mu could not help but feel somewhat excited. He did not know what kind of secret the small dark red sword contained, but the Heaven Wasteland sword token was a rare treasure. Its value was immeasurable. Just the Heaven Wasteland sword record that was sealed within it was enough to tempt even an Origin Realm expert, not to mention the other value of the Heaven Wasteland sword token itself. If the characters on the small dark red sword were really from the same time period as the characters on the Heaven Wasteland sword token, it meant that the origin of the small dark red sword was not ordinary. Even if it could not be compared to the Heaven Wasteland sword token, it should not be inferior by much. Thinking of this, Chu Mu couldn't wait to unravel the secret of the dark red sword. Due to the absorption of blood, the words on the dark red dagger became faintly discernible. Does this mean that as long as it absorbs enough blood, the two words will appear clearly? Chu Mu still stared at the dark red little sword as though he could see through it after putting away the infinite wasteland sword token. Could it be that, as long as this dark red little sword absorbs enough blood, the secret it contains will appear? Chu Mu recalled that the crimson sword had easily pierced through the hard shell of the Spirit Eater King. This was enough to show that the crimson sword's sharpness surpassed that of a top-grade sword. As of now, even if the secret of the dark red dagger had not been uncovered, its terrifying sharpness alone was enough to make it a trump card that could surprise and kill a target. Chu Mu couldn't help but feel lucky that he had practiced swordsmanship back on Earth. He had also practiced some methods of shooting hidden weapons. Although he didn't have much success, he was still quite proficient in it. After putting away the dark red small sword, a milky white bead appeared in Chu Mu's hand. It was about the size of a ping-pong ball. Once the bead appeared, the surrounding spirit aura was immediately absorbed and quickly purified. The spirit aura within a 30-meter radius became incomparably dense. As expected of the king-level spirit devouring orb of the Spirit Eater King. Its range has reached 30 meters, and the purity and density of the spirit chi has increased by 30%. The effects of the spirit devouring orb could not be stacked. With the king-level spirit devouring orb, the high-level spirit devouring orb would not be of much help to Chu Mu in his training. Once he used the king-level spirit-devouring orb to train the Heaven Origin Sword Chi, Chu Mu was confident that the time needed to break through to the Chi High Realm would be greatly reduced. What? Chu Mu is back? One of the elders of the Inner Palace Ninth Academy stood up abruptly. His face was full of shock, but it quickly turned into a look of ecstasy. Where is he now? Soon, not only did the elder of the Ninth Academy know about Chu Mu's return, the other elders also knew about it. Then, the headmaster and the inner palace headmaster knew about it. Good, this is really good. The head elder stroked his long beard and laughed heartily. He was sincerely happy. One could see that his hand was slightly trembling as he stroked his long beard. It was obvious that he was very excited. Originally, they all thought that Chu Mu had died in the Heaven Wasteland Earth Palace. Because he didn't appear until they left, Chu Mu was included in the death list. If it was a normal bronze sword ranking student who had died, they wouldn't feel so sorry. However, they had done their research on Chu Mu. They knew about his background and progress. Only then did they know that he was a genius in the way of the sword, and his future was limitless. Death was a great loss to the great Kuan Sword Palace. Tell Chu Mu to come see me, the inner palace headmaster ordered. Immediately, the inner palace headmaster, Duanmu Shinkong, sent a deacon to Astral 9 to find Chu Mu. Everything had changed. Chu Mu stood in front of his heaven-level sword tower and took out his identity token, but he couldn't enter. He knew that the heaven-level sword tower no longer belonged to him. It had become someone else's. What happened? Chu Mu didn't understand what was going on. Logically speaking, he was only going to complete the compulsory duty of the Sword Mansion, so the Sword Mansion should have kept his ownership of the Sword Tower. The Sword Mansion would only take back the Sword Tower if he died. Could it be that he had left the Heaven Wasteland Earth Palace too late, and the elders of the Sword Palace had determined that he was dead? At this time, a deacon from the Sword Palace came to invite Chu Mu to see the inner palace headmaster, Duanmu Shinkong. Chu Mu thought for a moment before following. He had to at least understand the situation in front of him. The first elder and the others came back with the news of your death, which made me very sad and distressed. Duanmu Shinkong stood up as soon as he saw Chu Mu and said directly, however, you didn't die and came back in the end. I am very happy. The 3 tens showed Duanmu Shinkong's concern for Chu Mu. Thank you for your concern, headmaster. Chu Mu saluted with his sword. No matter what, you've finally returned, and you've even completed your mission. Duanmu Shinkong had already learned about the mining area before Chu Mu's arrival. He knew that Chu Mu had returned to the mining area not long after the first elder and the others had left. He had been guarding the Heaven Wasteland Earth Palace for half a year before leaving. This was my mission, Chu Mu replied, but his mind was racing. If Duanmu Shinkong asked him why he had left the Heaven Wasteland Earth Palace later than the other students, what excuse should he make up? Chu Mu didn't intend to tell the truth. Otherwise, it would be too shocking. Anyway, it's good that you're back. Duanmu Shinkong didn't ask Chu Mu what had happened in the underground palace that made him leave later than the others. However, I thought you died in the underground palace, so your ranking on the bronze sword list and the right to live in the heaven-level sword tower have been cancelled. Chu Mu was not surprised. Since he was judged to be dead, it was reasonable to cancel his ranking on the bronze sword list and the right to live in the heaven-level sword tower. You can find a yellow-level sword tower to live in first, and then challenge. Duanmu Shinkong said, in view of my wrong judgment, you have the right to directly challenge the heaven-level sword tower, instead of the profound-level sword tower. Chu Mu nodded. In this way, he would save some time. As for whether he could succeed in directly challenging the heaven-level sword tower, Chu Mu had no doubt. Now he was much stronger than before, and one sword move was enough to kill him. As for the difficulty of challenging the bronze sword list and the heaven-level sword tower, in Chu Mu's eyes, there was no difference. Next, after Duanmu Shinkong ordered his subordinates to spread the news, he chatted with Chu Mu for a while, mainly about the guarding task in the desolate mining area, and occasionally mentioned the things in the Heaven Wasteland Earth Palace. However, the things Duanmu Shinkong asked about the Heaven Wasteland Earth Palace were very simple, and Chu Mu could easily answer without any fabrications. Duanmu Shinkong thought that Chu Mu's memory of the Heaven Wasteland Earth Palace was strangely vague like the other returning students, but in fact, Chu Mu's memory was not vague at all. But neither Duanmu Shinkong nor Chu Mu realized this, which made Duanmu Shinkong miss a good opportunity to really understand the Heaven Wasteland Earth Palace. You're practicing the 9 transformations of Tianyuan's sword qi, right? Your sword qi cultivation has reached the completion of qi transformation, close to the peak. Duanmu Shinkong changed the topic to Chu Mu's cultivation. I'll give you a suggestion. After reaching the peak of qi transformation, don't rush to break through to the qi high realm, but practice your sword qi first. It's best if you can practice the 9 transformations of Tianyuan to the completion of the 9th transformation. In this way, your foundation will be more stable, and it will be easier to stabilize your cultivation after breaking through to the qi high realm. By the way, which transformation have you practiced the 9 transformations of Tianyuan to? 6 or 7? The 8th transformation, Chu Mu answered. The 8th transformation. Duanmu Shinkong was slightly surprised, and then he smiled. Good, the 8th transformation. Compared with other swordsmen who practice the 9 transformations of Tianyuan, your progress is much better than theirs. But remember, don't be complacent. It's much more difficult to break through from the 8th transformation to the 9th transformation. Yes. Chu Mu nodded. He naturally knew that the difficulty of breaking through from the 8th revolution to the 9th revolution was many times higher than the difficulty of breaking through from the 7th revolution to the 8th revolution. This was because the 8th revolution was still within the qi transformation realm, but the 9th revolution was within the qi si realm. The difficulty of breaking through from the 8th transformation to the 9th transformation was similar to breaking through from the qi transformation realm to the qi high realm. Well, you can go back now. You can challenge me at any time. Duanmu Shinkong waved his hand and said, Goodbye. Chu Mu stood up and saluted with his sword. He turned around and left for Astral 9. According to his previous plan, he randomly chose an empty Huang-level sword tower. After all, it was already evening, and the challenge could wait until tomorrow. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian.com to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 366. The news of Chu Mu's return quickly spread throughout the entire Inner House 9th Academy. It swept through the entire inner house like a storm, letting most of the students know that the former king of swordsmanship had returned. Thank goodness he didn't die. Chu Tian secretly breathed a sigh of relief, feeling excited and happy. Ever since he saw Chu Mu's king of swordsmanship competition, he knew that his unremarkable cousin had now risen. He had caught up to him, surpassed him, and left him far behind. He had become a target that he could only look up to. After a period of internal struggle, Chu Tian completely accepted this fact. He hoped that Chu Mu could become stronger and stronger, which would represent the improvement of the Chu family as a whole. I knew it. The cold-faced man wouldn't die so easily. The news of Chu Mu's return made a small number of students happy, but most of them did not care. After all, they did not have much interaction with Chu Mu. All of this had nothing to do with Chu Mu. Staying in the Yellow Sword Tower, Chu Mu cultivated as usual. Currently, the Heavenly Desolate Sword Record's first volume of the Heavenly Desolate Sword Body had 8 organs that had completed the Heavenly Desolate transformation. There were only 3 left. Once the Heavenly Desolate transformation was completed, it meant that Chu Mu had completed the first level of the Heavenly Desolate Sword Body and could step into the second level of the Blood Chapter. The cultivation of the Tianhuang Sword Body did not have much effect in a short period of time or when it was not completed. It could only increase the strength of the body to a certain extent. Everything could only be done after it was completed. Not long after, Chu Mu felt the seal of the sword tower being touched. He stopped cultivating and looked outside through the window. He saw a sturdy figure standing outside the seal with a familiar silhouette. He went downstairs and opened the seal. The sturdy figure was slightly trembling because of excitement. His shining eyes were also constantly trembling as he stared at Chu Mu without blinking. "When I heard the news of your death, I thought it was not true. You're finally back," Liang Haishan said with incomparable excitement. "Come in and take a seat." Chu Mu smiled faintly. He realized that Liang Haishan looked a little off. His cheeks and eyes were clearly sunken in, and his eyes were bloodshot. He had gotten to know Liang Haishan when he had just entered. At that time, Liang Haishan had been of some help to him. He was a decent person and was worth befriending. After entering the yellow-grade sword tower and sitting down, Liang Haishan's body was still slightly trembling. He was too excited, too excited. His heart was beating 2 to 3 times faster than usual, and the blood flowing from his body made his face red like a cooked prawn. Chu Mu sat across from Liang Haishan. He didn't say anything as he waited for Liang Haishan to calm down. A moment later, Liang Haishan's body was no longer trembling, and his face was no longer as red. This meant that he was gradually regaining his composure. "It's great to see you back," Liang Haishan said again. During the King of Swordsmanship competition, Chu Mu had almost become a god in Liang Haishan's heart. When he heard the news of Chu Mu's death, Liang Haishan only felt that the sky had darkened. It was a feeling of losing one's faith, which made him almost suffocate and depressed. Now that he heard the news of Chu Mu's return, Liang Haishan immediately rushed over after confirming it. Seeing the person he worshipped standing in front of him alive, Liang Haishan couldn't describe his feelings at this moment. It took a long time for him to calm down and regain his composure. During the time when Liang Haishan regained his composure, Chu Mu also carefully looked at Liang Haishan. He found that Liang Haishan's sword qi cultivation had reached the peak of the small success stage. It seemed that he only needed an opportunity to break through to the qi stage Deshang, and his strength would increase by another step. Compared to Chu Mu, this cultivation speed was like heaven and earth. However, this was a normal situation. Not everyone had Chu Mu's luck. During this time, has there been any changes in the inner palace? Chu Mu asked first. When he chatted with the inner palace master Duanmu Shinkong, it was Duanmu Shinkong who asked the questions and Chu Mu who answered. Therefore, Chu Mu knew almost nothing about the changes in the inner palace. Originally, Chu Mu planned to ask someone tomorrow, but Liang Haishan's arrival allowed him to know in advance. In the past few months, there have been many changes in the inner palace. Liang Haishan said, "The biggest change is the change in the bronze sword ranking students." Chu Mu nodded. He expected that the Great Kuan Sword Mansion's inner palace had sent more than 60 bronze sword ranking students to the Heaven Wasteland Underground Palace. Some of them had truly died in the underground palace. The bronze sword ranking had a total of 100 names, which would always be maintained. Once there was a lack of one, the inner palace would fill it up in the shortest time possible. In the past few months, the biggest event was the Copper Sword Ranking competition. Because there were truly too many Copper Sword Ranking nominees, the entire competition went on for half a month. Liang Haishan said, causing Chu Mu to feel astonished. According to his thinking, the number of bronze sword ranking students who died in the underground palace should be around 20, and the number of nominees should be around 200 or 300. The competition should not have lasted for half a month. Could it be that the number of bronze sword ranking students who died in the underground palace was more than 20 or even more? If that was the case, then it would be a huge loss for the inner palace. The reason why the competition lasted for half a month is because many of the senior brothers on the bronze sword ranking had broken through to the Qi High Realm and become the King's Palace's students. Many of the spots on the bronze sword ranking suddenly became empty, causing the number of nominees to exceed 1,000. Liang Haishan explained. Senior brother Zhuge also broke through to the Qi High Realm? Chu Mu's eyes brightened as he asked. Zhuge Ming had taught Chu Mu a lot, and Chu Mu had always been grateful. Yes, not only did senior brother Zhuge break through to the Qi High Realm, senior sister Han also broke through to the Qi High Realm. Liang Haishan said with a smile. Chu Mu let out a smile. This was a good thing. Besides senior brother Zhuge and senior sister Han, who else broke through to the Qi High Realm? Chu Mu asked. Many. This time there were 38 senior brothers who broke through to the Qi High Realm, such as senior brother Wan Pan and senior brother Fu Shi. Liang Haishan said excitedly. It seems that all the students who survived the underground palace, except for me, have all broken through to the Qi High Realm. Chu Mu said to himself. The other students on the bronze sword ranking were all at the peak of the Qi transformation realm, and at least half of them were at the peak of the Qi transformation realm. In the underground palace, as long as they did not die, they had all gained some benefits, and their foundation had become more stable. And the battles they had gone through had stimulated their potential. Many of them could have broken through to the Qi High Realm when they were in the underground palace, but because of the restrictions of the underground palace, they could not break through to the Qi High Realm. Plus, they wanted to prepare well before breaking through, so they held back. Once they returned to the Sword Palace, they all went into closed-door training. The shortest was 3 days and the longest was 10 days. All of them had broken through to the Qi High Realm, and were qualified to become a student of the King Palace. In order to become a student of the King Palace, they had to go through a test. This test was difficult for normal Qi High warriors who had just broken through to the Qi High Realm. Even for some of the students on the bronze sword ranking, they could fail the test if they were not careful. But they only needed to go through a period of time to completely stabilize their cultivation. By then, their overall strength would increase by 30%, and passing the test would not be difficult. Not to mention, no matter if they could pass the test or not, they would have to leave the bronze sword ranking, because the bronze sword ranking belonged to the Qi Transformation Realm students. What about Zhu Tianzhao? Did he break through to the Qi High Realm? Chu Mu asked. His tone was very calm. Liang Haishan looked at Chu Mu. Looking at Chu Mu's calm expression and hearing his calm tone, Liang Haishan couldn't help but shiver. Yes, senior brother Chu. Zhu Tianzhao also broke through to the Qi High Realm and became a student of the King Palace. Liang Haishan quickly said. He knew that Zhu Tianzhao was the leader of the Proud Sword Clan, and there were some conflicts between the Proud Sword Clan and Chu Mu. This also meant that there were conflicts between Zhu Tianzhao and Chu Mu. Chu Mu nodded and didn't say anything else. Originally, he planned to find a chance to get rid of Zhu Tianzhao as soon as he returned to the Sword Palace. He didn't expect that Zhu Tianzhao would break through to the Qi High Realm and become a student of the King Palace. Looks like if I want to get rid of Zhu Tianzhao, I will have to wait until I break through to the Qi High Realm and become a student of the King Palace. Chu Mu thought to himself. Thinking about this, he was not in a hurry. That's right, senior brother Chu. Because you were thought to be dead, your spot on the bronze sword ranking was taken by someone else. Liang Haishan quickly said. Chu Mu nodded. Master Duanmu Shinkong had already told him about this, so there was nothing strange about it. However, with senior brother Chu's strength, I believe that you can easily get back on the bronze sword ranking. You might even be able to make it into the top 50, Liang Haishan said excitedly. Who's currently living in Astral Nine's first heaven sword tower? What's their rank on the bronze sword ranking? Chu Mu changed the topic. It's Su Tianran. Su Tianran wasn't originally a student on the bronze sword ranking, but in the past few months, he seemed to have had a fortuitous encounter. His cultivation increased by leaps and bounds, reaching the peak of the Qi transformation realm. His comprehension of the concept of water has also reached 65%. In the competition for the bronze sword ranking, he defeated many of the nominees in one fell swoop and took 30th place on the bronze sword ranking, which is even higher than senior brother Zhuge. Liang Haishan said in one breath. Su Tianran. 30th place. Chu Mu repeated and nodded. Senior brother Chu, are you planning to challenge Su Tianran? Liang Haishan couldn't help but ask. What? Can't I challenge Su Tianran? Chu Mu asked with a smile. No, Senior Brother Chu, of course you can challenge Su Tianran. However, he might be even stronger than Senior Brother Zhuge. It won't be easy to defeat him, Liang Haishan said. Said Liang Haishan. Although he worshipped Chu Mu almost to the point of faith, he wasn't completely blind. Especially after he learned of Chu Mu's death, he had become even more rational and considered more things. Chu Mu smiled and didn't say whether or not he really wanted to challenge Su Tianran. Instead, he changed the topic and started chatting. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 367. After Liang Haishan left, Chu Mu pondered for a moment and then began to comprehend the sword momentum. Time passed quickly, and Chu Mu did not rest for the whole night. He, who was used to high-intensity cultivation, spent almost all of his limited time on cultivation, striving to achieve the best cultivation results in the shortest time possible. He even wanted to cultivate all the time, but that was just an extravagant hope. At dawn the next day, Chu Mu completed the cultivation of the 9 revolutions of heavenly origin. After tidying up a little, he left the yellow-level sword tower and went to the branch of the 100 Affairs Hall to directly apply for the challenge of the heaven-level sword tower. Please give me your identity sword token. As for your original things, you can send them over after you finish the challenge. Deacon Lin of the 100 Affairs Hall smiled and then transferred 1 million credits into Chu Mu's identity sword token. That was what Chu Mu should get after completing the guarding task of the mining area. Brother Chu, which heaven-level sword tower do you want to challenge? Deacon Lin asked with a smile as he handed the identity sword token back to Chu Mu. Number 1. Chu Mu said lightly. Number 1. Deacon Lin opened his mouth and made a sound of disbelief. His face was full of astonishment. Deacon Lin felt that Chu Mu's cultivation had increased a lot this time, and his strength had also increased a lot. However, others had also increased a lot. Therefore, he estimated that the heaven-level sword tower Chu Mu wanted to challenge should be between number 10 and number 30. He did not expect Chu Mu to challenge the number 1 heaven-level sword tower. Wasn't he biting off more than he could chew? Brother Chu, a student of the number 1 heaven-level sword tower, ranked 30th on the bronze sword list. He is very powerful, even more powerful than Zhuge Ming. Deacon Lin hurriedly said, implying that he hoped Chu Mu would not bite off more than he could chew and choose a weaker person to challenge. That's even better, Chu Mu said with a smile. His tone was resolute and unquestionable. After learning about the situation from Liang Haishan, Chu Mu had already decided to directly challenge Sword Tower number 1. The spirit qi in the heaven-level Sword Tower was denser and purer. It was of great help to the cultivation of the heavenly origin sword qi, especially with the enhancement of the king-level spirit devouring pearl. As for the bronze sword ranking, Chu Mu did not care about his ranking. To him, the true use of the bronze sword ranking was the right to use the sword comprehension room. No matter if it was the first or second heaven-level sword tower or any other heaven-level sword tower, it was all the same to Chu Mu. With his current strength, he was confident that he could win even if he challenged the number 1 on the bronze sword list. A mere 30th place was nothing at all. Since Brother Chu has already decided, let's challenge the number 1 heaven-level sword tower. Deacon Lin's persuasion was fruitless, and he could only smile bitterly. He immediately passed down the message, and then led Chu Mu to the number 1 heaven-level sword tower. Su Tianran was wearing a loose blue robe. There was always a faint smile on his face, and there was a hint of arrogance between his brows. In the past, he was not conspicuous among the many inner palace students. However, he had a fortuitous encounter during a mission. This encounter had allowed his sword qi cultivation to advance by leaps and bounds, reaching the peak of the qi transformation realm. It had also allowed his comprehension of the concept of water to increase to 65%, and his overall strength had greatly increased. Coincidentally, when he returned to the Sword Mansion, he encountered the Bronze Sword List's nomination battle. With his increased strength, he defeated many opponents in one fell swoop and finally obtained 30th place on the Bronze Sword List, surpassing Zhuge Ming from the previous Bronze Sword List. Su Tianran did not show it on his face, but he was quite proud of himself. He felt that he was already the #1 expert in Astral 9, and that he was even more powerful than Zhuge Ming, who he had looked up to in the past. When Su Tianran received the news that someone wanted to challenge him, he was stunned at first, but when he found out that the person who wanted to challenge him was Chu Mu, he laughed out loud. Who was Chu Mu? Su Tianran knew very well that before and after the Sword Skills Are King competition, he had heard Chu Mu's name so many times that his ears were about to form calluses. He had even subconsciously considered Chu Mu as a formidable opponent. However, when he had obtained 30th place on the Bronze Sword List, he felt that Chu Mu was simply not his match. Therefore, when he received the news that Chu Mu wanted to challenge him, he felt that Chu Mu was overestimating himself. "Why don't the two of you fight in the sword battle arena?" Deacon Lin suggested. No matter what, Su Tianran was ranked 30th on the Bronze Sword List, while Chu Mu had previously been ranked 100. Both of their strengths were extraordinary, and if they fought, it would definitely affect a large area. The sword battle arena? There's no need for that. We can settle it here. It won't take much time, and it won't cause much of an impact, Su Tianran said unhurriedly, his half-smile even more obvious. Su Tianran's eyes stared at Chu Mu, his indifferent eyes carrying a trace of contempt. Even Deacon Lin could feel it, let alone Chu Mu. Chu Mu, there was a time when I thought I would have to look up to you. I never thought that I would surpass you and leave you far behind me. Chu Mu did not speak, so Su Tianran spoke again. He held the hilt of his sword with one hand and said, "Make your move. I'll let you make 3 moves, lest you say I didn't give you a chance." Hearing Su Tianran's confident words, Chu Mu wanted to laugh. This person's sense of superiority was too strong. "Your words are too much," Chu Mu said lightly. He unsheathed the quick sky sword and stabbed forward. Su Tianran only saw the sword light flash before his eyes, and a cold star was already heading straight for his face. The cold attack was so fast that it was beyond his expectations. Feeling a chill in his heart, Su Tianran quickly retreated and pulled out his sword to block. The blue-colored sword aura was like a surging tide. Layer by layer, it surged towards Chu Mu, causing Chu Mu's sword to feel as if it had pierced into water, causing its speed to be affected. This blue sword chi contained obvious fluctuations of the concept of water. From this, it could be seen that Su Tianran's reputation was not undeserved. Facing Chu Mu's extremely fast sword, he quickly responded, trying to weaken Chu Mu's attack speed as much as possible to buy himself some time. With a clang, the two swords collided and sparks flew. Su Tianran quickly retreated and finally escaped Chu Mu's attack range. His face turned green and white, and there was a hint of fear. "I take back what I said about letting you make 3 moves. Your strength is completely beyond my expectations. I will use all my strength to deal with you." Su Tianran was a straightforward person. He immediately took back what he said, not caring about his face. "I practice the mortal tier ancient sword art, Great River Sword Art. Take this. Great River Sword Art, Endless River Surges." Su Tianran did not give Chu Mu a chance to speak. He waved his blue sword and waves of water spread out. It was as if the surrounding air had turned into a lake. The blue sword chi and the concept of water mixed together, and under Su Tianran's sword attack, it turned into a great river. Endless waves surged towards Chu Mu. The sound of the waves grew louder and louder, like the ebb and flow of the tides. Not far away, Manager Lin's face changed. This sword move was not very powerful in the beginning, but its advantage was its endurance. After a few waves of impact, the power would continue to stack, becoming increasingly powerful. In the end, it would become unstoppable. Although Manager Lin's strength was not that great, he had a lot of experience and had a good eye. He immediately saw through the characteristics of Su Tianran's sword move. He wanted to warn Chu Mu, but he had to restrain himself. Once he did, it would be the same as cheating. Even if Chu Mu won in the end, it would be an unfair victory. Waves of blue sword qi were reflected in Su Tianran's eyes. Each wave contained more than 60% of the water mentality, and was extremely powerful. He waved his speed sky sword, and the heaven yuan sword qi and the ripping mentality were mixed together. The rock-shaking wave sword was activated. A dark gold sword with high-frequency vibrations tore through the sky. Upon contact, it tore through the first wave of blue wave. In the blink of an eye, waves after waves of blue waves were torn apart like tofu. The dark gold sword light tore through the waves and directly attacked Su Tianran. Su Tianran's face changed drastically. He waved his sword to block. Pung! The blue sword was shaken, and his protective sword qi was also shattered by the shockwave of the rock-shaking wave sword. The huge shockwave and the extremely sharp ripping mentality made Su Tianran's whole body fly back uncontrollably. After landing on the ground, he took a few steps back. Each step left a clear footprint on the ground. His blood and qi were boiling, and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. His face first turned red, then white, and his eyes were filled with shock. This! Standing on the side, Manager Lin's jaw dropped. He almost couldn't believe what he was seeing. One sword. Chu Mu had only thrown out one sword attack, but it had not only broken Su Tianran's sword attack, it had also put him at a disadvantage. What kind of sword was that? Su Tianran swallowed hard and his voice became hoarse. Rock-shaking wave sword. Chu Mu answered lightly. He pointed his speed sky sword at the ground, and his eyes landed on Su Tianran's face, waiting for him to make a choice. Would he continue the battle or surrender? Su Tianran's eyes were shaking. He was struggling in his heart. In the end, he gritted his teeth and said, "I surrender. You are more powerful than me." Although he was proud, Su Tianran was not a brainless person. From that sword attack of Chu Mu's, he knew that there was a gap between him and Chu Mu's power. That sword attack had still made his blood and qi churn, and the hand that was holding the sword was a bit numb. His mentality had also suffered a huge blow. Under such a condition, there was no way he could be Chu Mu's opponent. "Thank you." Chu Mu put his sword back into its scabbard and saluted. "I will go pack up now." Su Tianran also put his sword back into its scabbard. He laughed at himself and walked into the heaven-level sword tower. "Brother Chu, congratulations on your successful challenge." Manager Lin still felt like he was dreaming. Chu Mu smiled. He did not think that there was anything to congratulate him for. Defeating Su Tianran was within his expectations. Not long after, Su Tianran finished packing up and walked out of the number 1 heaven-level sword tower, and headed towards the yellow-level sword tower area. The yellow-level sword tower was only a temporary residence. He would challenge it the next day and move back into the heaven-level sword tower. Chu Mu and Manager Lin also returned to the 100 Affair Hall branch. They gave Chu Mu's identity sword token a sign to open the number 1 heaven-level sword tower. From now on, the number 1 heaven-level sword tower belonged to Chu Mu. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian.com to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 368. The news that Chu Mu had challenged and defeated Su Tianran quickly spread, attracting the attention of many people. This Chu Mu is really unexpected. He defeated Su Tianran so easily. It seems that his real strength can be ranked in the top 10 of the bronze sword list, the first elder said with a smile. To be able to leave the Heaven Wasteland Palace alive, one's strength will improve greatly. It's not surprising, Duanmu Shinkong said with a smile. I'm looking forward to seeing how far he can go in the end, the first elder said with a smile. In other places there were also many discussions about Chu Mu. The topic of Chu Mu rose again. Living in the heaven-level sword tower again, Chu Mu could not help but sigh at the obvious difference between the heaven-level sword tower and the yellow-level sword tower. Wearing the king-level soul-devouring pearl, the spiritual chi in the heaven-level sword tower was immediately absorbed and purified. If other students were to enter Chu Mu's heaven-level sword tower, they would be extremely shocked. After completing the 9 revolutions of heavenly yuan, Chu Mu placed the king-rank spirit-eating orb on the 4th floor of the sword tower, allowing it to continuously absorb large amounts of spirit aura. Meanwhile, he left the sword tower and headed towards the sword comprehension room. Completing the guarding mission in the desolate mining area earned him 1 million credit. Adding the 1 million credits he had left, Chu Mu could use the sword comprehension room for more than 200 hours. Based on 10 hours a day, he could use the room for more than 2 months. Chu Mu's main purpose in entering the sword comprehension room was to comprehend the lacerating essence. The essence of cloud was not very useful to him. Among the essences, the lacerating essence was the main one. The deeper his comprehension of the lacerating essence was, the stronger his strength would be. Chu Mu's goal was to increase his comprehension of the lacerating essence to 40%, which was to enter the small success realm. Currently, the lacerating essence was 36%. Arriving at the sword comprehension room, Chu Mu paid 50,000 credits and 500 low-grade spirit stones. Chu Mu obtained the right to use the sword comprehension room for 10 hours. After entering the sword comprehension room, he cleared his mind of distracting thoughts and immersed his mind in his spiritual world. He came in contact with the dark golden sword light that seemed to be tearing through space and began to comprehend it. Instantly, the mysteries of the ripping intent domain appeared in his mind. After living in the heaven-grade sword tower, Chu Mu's life once again returned to its former monotonous state. The heaven-level sword tower, the dining hall, the sword comprehension room, these 3 lives occupied Chu Mu's time to the brim. He didn't even have much time to rest, let alone do other things. In this way, the results of comprehending the concept of tearing were also very pleasing. In the past, he could only increase his ripping mentality by 10% after spending a month in the sword comprehension room. Ever since the trip to the heaven-desolate Earth Palace, the speed had changed. On the 10th day of using the sword comprehension room, Chu Mu's ripping mentality had increased once again, reaching 37% and getting closer to 40%. On the 20th day, the ripping mentality had increased to 38%. On the 30th day, the ripping mentality had increased to 39%. As the days passed, the credits on Chu Mu's identity sword token became fewer and fewer, and the low-grade spirit stones in the space bracelet also became fewer and fewer. His strength also gradually increased with the passage of time. The progress of the ripping mentality was gratifying, but the cultivation of the 9 revolutions of Heaven Yuan was a bit unsatisfactory. Under the enhancement of the Heaven-grade Sword Tower and the King-grade Spirit-Devouring Pearl, Chu Mu's sword chi cultivation had reached the peak of the perfection of chi transformation. However, the 8 revolutions of Heaven Yuan showed no signs of breaking through to the 9th revolution. As the days passed, the heated discussion about Chu Mu had cooled down, because in the inner mansion, other things often happened. For example, today, a student on the bronze sword list challenged a student ranked above him, and in the end, he defeated his opponent or was defeated by his opponent. This year's students on the bronze sword list were obviously more active than the previous year's students. All kinds of challenges were endless, and a very obvious challenge storm was stirred up in the inner mansion. As a student on the bronze sword list, Chu Mu was naturally not spared. He was also challenged, and the one who wanted to challenge him was the student ranked 32nd on the bronze sword list. "Draw your sword," Chu Mu said lightly. At this time, he was walking out of the number 1 heaven-grade sword tower and was going to the sword comprehension room to comprehend the ripping mentality. Here, the student who wanted to challenge Chu Mu was a student from another school. As soon as he heard Chu Mu's words, he suddenly became angry. Obviously, he was underestimated by Chu Mu. "I am in a hurry. If you don't draw your sword, I will leave first," Chu Mu still said lightly. "You." The opponent was very angry. He directly drew his sword and performed the ancient sword art. Sword light and thunder raged, making a terrible roar that shook the world. Chu Mu unsheathed his sword at a speed that the opponent could not see with naked eyes. It was the space-splitting sword attack. The space-splitting sword attack combined with the 13 moves of the Golden Blade was very powerful. It was not inferior to the third move of the Shocking Wind sword art. In addition, the ripping mentality had reached 39%. Chu Mu's strength was much stronger than a month ago. With only one sword move, he broke the opponent's ancient sword art and wounded him. Putting his sword back into the sheath, Chu Mu hurried to the sword comprehension room. The student who challenged Chu Mu flew back a few meters and fell on the ground. He spat out a mouthful of blood and his face turned pale. Staring at Chu Mu's back, he gritted his teeth and was very unwilling to accept the result. It was useless to be unwilling. After all, Chu Mu was so powerful that he defeated him with only one sword move. After the news spread, many students who wanted to challenge Chu Mu gave up the idea. The students who were ranked in front of Chu Mu naturally could not challenge Chu Mu. First of all, their rankings were before Chu Mu. If they defeated Chu Mu, their rankings would not change. If they were accidentally defeated by Chu Mu, not only would their rankings be replaced by Chu Mu, but they would also lose face. Some people began to speculate about Chu Mu's true strength. He could not be ranked 30th on the bronze sword ranking. He could be even higher. He might even be able to enter the top 10. Of course, there were also people who refuted that Chu Mu did not have the strength to enter the top 10. All in all, the discussion about Chu Mu rose again. Some people noticed that Chu Mu had become the center of attention as soon as he came back. However, Chu Mu did not care about it at all. He was immersed in his cultivation. In a flash, another 10 days had passed. However, the lacerating mentality was still at 39% and had not reached 40%. There was a very obvious improvement from 39% to 40%. It was an improvement from the entry level to the small success level. It was not that easy, so Chu Mu was not in a hurry. The days passed. It was the 50th day since Chu Mu had returned to the Sword Mansion. Chu Mu paid another 50,000 credits and 500 low-grade spirit stones to enter the sword comprehension room and continue to comprehend the lacerating mentality. The lacerating mentality originated from the variation of the gold mentality. It strengthened the sharpness of the gold mentality to the greatest extent and assisted the wind mentality in its cutting speed. The combination of the two made the lacerating mentality extremely powerful. Endless sharpness appeared in Chu Mu's mind. The sharpness was astonishing and the speed was astonishing. It seemed as if there was nothing between heaven and earth that could not be broken. Chu Mu vaguely saw a dark golden thin sword light shoot through the sky and cut everything. Nothing could resist it and was easily cut in half by the dark golden sword light. Suddenly, Chu Mu's soul trembled. The dark golden thin sword light in his spiritual world also trembled. It seemed to have grown a little in an instant. Chu Mu felt that his lacerating mentality had broken through a bottleneck and reached a new level. Lacerating mentality 40%. He opened his eyes and exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. 40% of the lacerating mentality was equivalent to 70% of the gold mentality. And 70% of the gold mentality was the mentality of Deshang. If I can increase the lacerating mentality to 50%, then it will be equivalent to 80% of the normal mentality. At that time, I will be able to practice the broken star sword art. I believe that this Earth-level ancient sword art is extremely powerful. Once I successfully practice it, my overall strength will increase by a lot. Chumu thought to himself. His eyes were shining with a strong light. He was looking forward to practicing the broken star sword art. If I can successfully practice the broken star sword art, then with my peak chi transforming realm cultivation, I will be able to fight against a lower chi C realm sword artist. With this goal, Chumu was even more motivated to practice. 10 hours were up. Chumu had to leave the sword comprehension room and return to the number 1 heaven-level sword tower. Because his lacerating mentality had reached the lower level, Chumu's eyes unconsciously had a trace of sharpness. It made people not dare to look at him directly. The elder guarding the sword comprehension room glanced at Chumu. He could clearly feel some changes in Chumu's body. He knew that Chumu's strength must have increased again. After returning to the heaven-level sword tower, Chumu did not relax because his lacerating mentality had reached 40%. He continued to practice other aspects of his cultivation as before. The practice of the Sky Desolation sword body was nearing its end. 10 of the 11 organs had completed the Sky Desolation transformation. The last one was about to be completed as well. If nothing unexpected happened after today's practice, the last organ should be able to complete the Sky Desolation transformation. He used the upper-grade Sky Desolation elixir because he had finished using the middle-grade Sky Desolation elixir. He cleared away all distracting thoughts and focused his mind. According to the method of the Sky Desolation sword body, he used the pure desolation chi of the upper-grade Sky Desolation elixir to refine the last organ. Time passed by slowly. Finally, with the consumption of the upper-grade Sky Desolation elixir, the last organ's Sky Desolation transformation was completed. The entire organ turned yellowish-brown in an instant. Its surface was covered with countless cracks. In the blink of an eye, these cracks quickly disappeared into the organ. In just 3 breaths of time, the entire organ was restored to its original state. It looked the same as before, but Chumu knew that this organ had completely completed the Sky Desolation transformation. I've finally completed the practice of the organs chapter. Thinking to himself, it was a pity that after completing the organ chapter, Chumu only felt that his organs had become more valiant. That was all, and it didn't directly increase his strength. However, this could not be rushed. After all, before the Sky Desolation sword body was truly completed, the increase in strength was not obvious. After completing the practice of the organs chapter, Chumu did not continue to practice the Sky Desolation sword body. Any kind of practice had to pay attention to a certain degree. Going too far was as bad as falling short. The most suitable was the best. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian.com to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation.